Aria Bennett stands frozen in the Crystal Monarch Ballroom, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, when a drunken businessman mistakes her for hotel staff and shoves her hard enough to spill champagne down her secondhand dress. The entire room goes silent. Then Lucien Moretti, the most feared mafia boss in New York, appears beside her, leans close, and whispers 5 words that will destroy her life. "Pretend to be my wife." Before she can breathe, he announces her as Mrs. Moretti to the entire ballroom. Now she's trapped in a contract marriage with a man who rules the underworld, owns her debts, and has one brutal rule. If either of them falls in love, the deal ends immediately. But falling for the king of Blackwater might be the only thing more dangerous than refusing him. If you want to see how far love can survive inside the darkness, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The champagne glass shattered against marble 3 seconds before Aria Bennett's life changed forever. She didn't drop it. The businessman, red-faced, expensive suit reeking of bourbon, knocked it from her hands when he grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward him like she was property. Aria stumbled in her cheap heels, the ones with the broken strap she'd glued back together that morning, and champagne exploded across the front of her dress. The secondhand black fabric immediately turned dark and sticky. "You work here, don't you?" His breath was hot and sour against her face. "Get me another drink. Now." Aria's throat closed. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, fingers digging into her skin hard enough to bruise. The Crystal Monarch Ballroom stretched around them in every direction. A cathedral of wealth built from gold chandeliers, marble columns, and people who cost more than entire city blocks. Politicians, CEOs, crime bosses dressed like philanthropists, all of them watching her humiliation like it was dinner theater. "I'm not—" Her voice came out strangled. "I'm not staff. I'm a guest." The lie tasted bitter. Guest implied invitation. Aria had won her ticket in a charity raffle at the diner where she worked 60-hour weeks to keep her mother alive. The ticket had seemed like a miracle 3 weeks ago. Now it felt like cosmic punishment. The businessman's laugh was ugly. "A guest? Dressed like that?" His eyes crawled over her ruined dress, lingering in places that made her skin crawl. "You're either staff or you're working a different kind of job tonight, sweetheart." Heat flooded Aria's face. Around them, conversations died. Heads turned. Someone whispered something behind a champagne flute that made 3 people laugh. Aria wanted to disappear, wanted to sink through the marble floor and never come back. But her mother's medical bills wouldn't pay themselves, and the eviction notice in her purse wouldn't vanish just because she was drowning in shame. She jerked her wrist again. The businessman held tighter. "Let go of me. Make me." Then a voice cut through the ballroom like a blade through silk. "Remove your hand from my wife." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Aria's head snapped sideways. So did everyone else's. Through the crowd of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, a man moved toward them with the kind of presence that didn't need introduction. Tall, dark hair swept back with careless precision, a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so carefully empty of everything except controlled violence. His tuxedo fit like it had been born on his body, and people moved out of his path without conscious thought, the same way they'd move for a predator. Aria knew exactly who he was. Everyone in New York knew Lucien Moretti, the king of Blackwater, the mafia boss who controlled half the city's underground and made the other half pay rent. Newspapers called him the most dangerous man in Manhattan. True crime podcasts dedicated entire seasons to his alleged empire. Federal prosecutors had been trying to touch him for 15 years. They always failed, and he was walking directly toward her. The businessman's grip loosened. His face went sheet white. "Mr. Moretti, She didn't say, "You have 3 seconds to step back before I make you regret attending this event." Lucien's voice was quiet. Conversational. The kind of tone someone uses to discuss weather or stock prices. It made the threat 10 times worse. The businessman released Aria's wrist so fast she stumbled backward. He disappeared into the crowd like smoke. Aria stood frozen, heart hammering against her ribs, staring at the most feared man in New York. Up close, Lucien Moretti was worse than photographs suggested. Not worse looking. Worse in the way his eyes absorbed everything without revealing anything. dark eyes that had seen too much and felt too little, a jaw that looked carved from granite, hands that rested calmly at his sides but somehow promised unspeakable violence. He looked at her the way someone examines a chess piece before deciding whether it's useful. "You're going to do exactly what I say." His voice was low enough that only she could hear. "Don't argue. Don't ask questions. Just follow my lead." Aria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Lucien reached for her hand, not grabbing, not forcing, just offering with terrifying patience. His fingers were warm and steady. Everything about him radiated control. "Pretend to be my wife," he murmured. Then he turned toward the ballroom, and his voice carried across the entire space with effortless authority. "Apologies for the disruption. My wife is still adjusting to these public events. She prefers staying out of the spotlight." His hand moved to the small of Aria's back, possessive and certain. "Aria Moretti, my bride of 6 months." The room exploded into shocked silence. Aria felt 300 pairs of eyes lock onto her like sniper scopes. Her brain short-circuited. Lucien Moretti, the man who didn't do relationships, didn't do marriage, didn't do anything except control criminal empires with brutal efficiency, just announced her as his wife. To everyone. Politicians who could start investigations, rival crime families who would kill for this kind of leverage, journalists who would sell their mothers for a story this explosive. She should run. She should scream. She should tell everyone this was insane. But Lucien's hand pressed slightly firmer against her back, a silent command disguised as intimacy. So Aria smiled. It felt like swallowing glass. "Hello," she managed. Her voice sounded thin and distant. The ballroom rippled with whispers. Someone's champagne glass hit the floor. A woman in diamonds stared at Aria like she'd grown a second head. Across the room, a silver-haired man in a perfect suit watched with an expression that promised this information would be weaponized before midnight. Lucien guided her through the crowd with practiced ease, nodding to people who looked too terrified to approach. His hand never left her back. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. Husband and wife navigating hostile territory together. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt disturbingly natural. "Smile more," Lucien murmured against her ear, voice so low it sent shivers down her spine. "You're supposed to be in love with me." "I don't even know you," Aria hissed back through her frozen smile. "They don't know that." He steered her toward a private alcove behind a marble column, away from the crowd's immediate line of sight. The moment they stopped moving, Aria yanked herself out of his grip and spun to face him. "What the hell was that?" Lucien straightened his cufflinks, completely unbothered. "A solution to both our problems." "Both are—" Aria's voice climbed. She forced it back down. "You just told 300 people I'm your wife. I'm not your wife. I don't know you. I've never met you before tonight." "Correct." He studied her with those empty dark eyes. "Which is why this works. No history, no complications. No one can disprove it immediately." "Everyone can disprove it immediately. There's no marriage certificate, no photos, no—" "There will be." Lucien checked his watch like this conversation was mildly boring. "By tomorrow morning, there will be documentation, photographs, and enough digital footprint to satisfy anyone who asks questions. My people are very efficient." Aria stared at him. "Your people?" "Yes." "You're talking about forging government documents." "I'm talking about establishing a necessary cover story." He looked at her again, and this time something flickered in his expression. Not warmth, but calculation. "You were being humiliated. I intervened. Now we both benefit." "How does this benefit me? You just made me a target for every person in your world." "True." Lucien tilted his head slightly. "But you were already a target the moment you walked into this ballroom wearing a $50 dress and carrying medical debt that would bankrupt most families." The air left Aria's lungs. Lucien's expression didn't change. Aria Bennett, 26 years old, works 3 jobs primarily at Marco's Diner on 5th Avenue. Mother, Caroline Bennett, currently receiving treatment for congestive heart failure at Mount Sinai. Medical bills totaling $473,000. Eviction notice filed 8 days ago for your apartment in Brooklyn. You won the ticket to this event in a raffle benefiting pediatric cancer research. Aria's hand started shaking. "How do you—" "I know everything." He said it matter-of-factly. the way someone might comment on the weather. About everyone in this room, it's why I'm still alive. The words hit like physical blows. He'd investigated her, cataloged her life, knew exactly how desperate she was. What do you want? Aria's voice came out hoarse. For the first time, Lucien's expression shifted into something that might have been approval. You're smarter than most people I meet. They usually waste time on denial. He stepped closer, not threatening, just closing distance. I want you to continue being my wife, publicly, for 1 year. Why? Because my family is trying to force me into marriage with the daughter of a rival organization, a strategic alliance that would give them control over my territory. His jaw tightened fractionally. I won't be controlled, so I need a wife who isn't connected to their power structures, someone they can't leverage. Aria's head spun. You want a fake wife? I want a real marriage with clear boundaries. Lucien reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, an address in Midtown. Come to this location tomorrow at noon. My lawyers will explain the contract terms. If you agree, your mother's medical bills will be paid in full. Your housing situation will be resolved. You'll receive a monthly stipend that exceeds what you currently make in a year. And if I don't agree? Lucien's eyes went flat. Then enjoy your eviction. I'm sure your mother's treatment plan will adjust well to homeless shelters. The cruelty was casual, efficient. He wasn't threatening her, just stating facts. Aria wanted to throw the business card in his face, wanted to tell him exactly where he could shove his contract and his money and his terrifying criminal empire. But her mother's face swam in her mind. Aria Bennett sitting in a hospital bed, pretending she wasn't scared while heart monitors beeped their fragile rhythm. Medical bills stacking higher every week. Doctors using words like palliative care and quality of life remaining. Her mother was dying because Aria couldn't afford to save her. Lucien watched her internal war with patient detachment. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires. He turned to leave. Wait, Aria's voice cracked. 1 year? Lucien paused, glancing back over his shoulder. 12 months, then we dissolve the marriage quietly. You walk away with enough money to start over anywhere you choose. What are the boundaries? Something that might have been dark amusement crossed his face. Read the contract. Everything will be clearly defined. Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd with the same lethal grace he'd arrived with. People parted for him automatically. Conversations resumed in his wake, louder now, urgent with gossip. Aria heard her name being whispered, heard speculation, heard someone ask if Lucien Moretti had really been hiding a wife for 6 months. She looked down at the business card in her shaking hand. Moretti Enterprises. Lucien Moretti, CEO. The address glowed in raised silver lettering. Aria's phone buzzed, a text from her mother's hospital. Caroline's condition declining. Doctors recommend upgrading to ICU immediately. Cost $8,000 per day. Please contact billing to discuss payment options. Her vision blurred. Around her, the Crystal Monarch ballroom glittered with obscene wealth. People sipped champagne that cost more than her monthly rent, wore jewelry that could pay for her mother's entire treatment, laughed about stock portfolios and vacation homes while Aria's world crumbled in her hands. She read the text again. Then she looked at Lucien's business card. Tomorrow at noon, she'd walk into the lion's den and sign a contract with the devil himself, because saving her mother was worth anything, even marrying a monster. Aria didn't sleep. She sat in her shoebox apartment in Brooklyn, staring at peeling wallpaper and listening to sirens scream through the night. The business card sat on her secondhand coffee table like a grenade waiting to explode. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucien Moretti's empty dark stare, heard his casual threat about homeless shelters, felt his hand on her back, possessive and certain. At 6 a.m., she gave up trying to rest. She showered in the tiny bathroom with its cracked tiles and inconsistent water pressure. Put on the only professional outfit she owned, a gray pencil skirt and white blouse from Target, both slightly too big because she'd lost weight from stress. Applied minimal makeup because anything more felt like admitting defeat. Her phone buzzed constantly. Unknown numbers. Journalists, probably, already digging into Lucien Moretti's mysterious wife. Aria ignored them all. At 7:30, her boss called from the diner. Aria, what the hell is going on? Marco sounded simultaneously confused and impressed. You're all over the morning news. They're saying you married Lucien Moretti. Aria closed her eyes. It's complicated. Complicated? Kid, that man could buy Manhattan and turn it into a parking lot if he wanted. You're standing in his tax bracket now. I'm not. She stopped. Lies felt too heavy this early. I can't explain right now, Marco. You coming in for your shift? The question almost made her laugh. Her shift. Like the next 12 months of her life weren't about to be controlled by a mafia king with dead eyes and perfect cufflinks. I don't know, she admitted. Marco was quiet for a moment. Whatever you're doing, Aria, be careful. Men like Lucien Moretti don't do anything without a reason, and the reason is never kindness. He hung up. Aria sat on her sagging couch and waited for noon like a prisoner waiting for execution. The building was exactly what she expected, and somehow worse. Moretti Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of a glass tower in Midtown that looked like it had been designed to intimidate. Aria stood on the sidewalk, staring up at reflective windows that turned the sky into a weapon. Security cameras tracked her from every angle. Men in suits, too fit, too alert, definitely armed, stood at the entrance like statues carved from violence. She walked inside before she could change her mind. The lobby was all white marble and cold chrome. A receptionist with perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes looked up when Aria approached. Aria Bennett, Aria said. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. I have a noon appointment. The receptionist's smile sharpened. Of course, Mrs. Moretti. Mr. Moretti is expecting you. Top floor, private elevator to your left. Mrs. Moretti. The words hit like a slap. Aria found the private elevator. Gold doors, biometric scanner, the kind of security that screamed billions of dollars and enemies to match. The doors opened before she could touch anything. She stepped inside. The elevator rose so smoothly she barely felt movement. When the doors opened again, she was standing in a penthouse office that looked like it had been ripped from an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that cost more than cars. Art on the walls that might have been stolen from museums. And behind a massive desk carved from black wood, Lucien Moretti sat reading documents like the world's fate depended on his signature. He looked up when she entered. You came. No surprise in his voice, just statement of fact. Did I have a choice? Aria stepped out of the elevator. The doors closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. Everyone has choices. Lucien stood, buttoning his suit jacket with casual precision. You made yours? Two men in expensive suits appeared from a side door. Lawyers, Aria realized. They carried briefcases and expressions of professional neutrality that probably cost extra. This is Marcus Reeves and David Chen, Lucien introduced them without warmth. They've prepared the contract. Read it carefully. Ask questions. Take your time. Marcus set a leather folder on the conference table that dominated one side of the office. Mrs. Bennett, if you'd like to sit? Aria crossed to the table on legs that felt disconnected from her body. She sat. Marcus opened the folder, revealing a contract so thick it might as well have been a novel. The agreement is straightforward, Marcus began, his voice smooth and practiced. A marriage contract valid for 12 months from the date of signing. During this period, you'll function as Mr. Moretti's legal spouse in all public and social capacities. You'll live in his residence, attend events as required, and maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. Aria stared at the first page. Dense legal language swam before her eyes. In exchange, David continued, Mr. Moretti will provide the following. Full payment of all outstanding medical debts related to your mother's care, including ongoing treatment for the duration of the contract and 6 months following its dissolution. Secure housing in a property of your choosing, with all expenses covered. A monthly stipend of $50,000, deposited directly into an account established in your name. Aria's breath caught. 50,000. Every month. That was more than she made in a year working 3 jobs. Additional terms, Marcus said, flipping pages. No public disclosure of the contract's existence. No interviews, social media posts, or communications that might expose the arrangement. Any breach results in immediate termination and forfeiture of all financial benefits. What about, Aria's voice cracked. She cleared her throat. What about physical requirements? Both lawyers looked uncomfortable. Lucien, standing by the windows with his back to them, didn't move. The contract contains a strict no intimacy clause, David said carefully. This is a business arrangement. There are no physical expectations or obligations. Separate bedrooms? Aria asked. The penthouse has multiple suites. You'll have complete privacy. Aria looked at Lucien's back. He stood perfectly still, watching Manhattan spread below him like a kingdom. What if one of us wants out early? There's a termination clause. Marcus flipped to a page near the end. Either party can end the contract at any time with 30 days' notice. However, doing so forfeits all remaining financial benefits. Your mother's medical coverage would end. The housing arrangement would dissolve. The monthly stipend would stop. Translation: leaving meant watching her mother die. Aria felt sick. One more thing. Lucien's voice cut through the room without him turning around. There's a condition. The lawyers exchanged glances. What condition? Aria asked. Lucien finally turned to face her. His expression was carved from ice. If either of us develops emotional attachment, if feelings become involved, the contract terminates immediately. Aria blinked. You're putting a no falling in love clause in a marriage contract? Yes. That's insane. That's necessary. Lucien walked toward the table with measured steps. Emotions make people weak, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. I built my life on control and clarity. I won't compromise that for anything. Not even for someone you're married to? His eyes went flat. Especially not for someone I'm married to. This is a business transaction, nothing more. The moment it becomes something else, it ends. Aria stared at him. The most feared man in New York, terrified of feelings. It would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. What if we can't control it? She asked quietly. What if it just happens? It won't. Lucien's voice was absolute. I don't do attachment, and you're too smart to confuse financial security with affection. The words were meant to be reassuring. Instead, they felt like a prison sentence. Marcus cleared his throat. Do you need time to review the contract, Mrs. Bennett? Aria looked down at the thick document. Pages and pages of legalese that all meant one thing. Sell your life for 12 months to save your mother's. I need a pen, she said. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. Or satisfaction at having predicted her choice correctly. David produced a fountain pen from his briefcase. Heavy. Expensive. The kind of pen that signed documents worth millions. Aria took it. Her hand shook as she flipped to the signature page. Her mother's face floated in her mind. Caroline Bennett, who'd worked 2 jobs her entire life to raise Aria alone after her father left. Who'd gone without so Aria could have school supplies and winter coats. Who smiled through pain and pretended hospital beds were comfortable. Aria pressed the pen to paper. She signed her name in slightly unsteady letters. The moment she finished, Marcus and David countersigned as witnesses. Lucien signed last, his signature a harsh slash of black ink that looked like violence frozen in cursive. Congratulations, Marcus said, gathering the documents. You're officially married. Aria felt nothing, just hollow emptiness where panic should have been. Lucien checked his watch. My driver will take you to the penthouse. Your belongings will be moved from your current apartment within the hour. A stylist will arrive at 4 p.m. to update your wardrobe. We have a charity gala tomorrow night. You'll need appropriate clothing. What about my mother? Already handled. Lucien nodded to David, who produced another folder. Transfer orders to Mount Sinai's private cardiac wing. Top specialists. Experimental treatments if necessary. No expense spared. Aria opened the folder with trembling hands. Official hospital letterhead. Treatment plans written in medical terminology she didn't understand. And at the bottom, a note in her mother's handwriting. Aria, they told me what you did. Please tell me this is what you want. Please tell me you're okay. I love you. Tears burned behind Aria's eyes. You told her? Aria's voice came out broken. She deserved to know her daughter saved her life. Lucien's expression remained empty. I had doctors explain that you'd married someone with resources to provide proper care. She doesn't know the specifics of our arrangement. She thinks I married for love. Let her think that. It's kinder than the truth. Aria stood on shaking legs. I want to see her. Tomorrow, after the gala. Lucien gestured toward the elevator. My driver is waiting. She should argue, should demand to see her mother immediately, should scream at him for manipulating her entire life in less than 24 hours. But the contract was signed, and Lucien Moretti owned her now. Aria walked to the elevator in silence. The doors opened immediately, like they'd been waiting for her surrender. She stepped inside and turned to face the office. Lucien stood by the windows again, already focused on other matters. A king returning to his empire after acquiring a new piece. The elevator doors closed. Aria watched her reflection in the polished gold surface. She looked like a ghost, pale, hollow, haunted by choices that weren't really choices at all. The elevator descended so smoothly she barely felt it. When the doors opened, she was standing in an underground garage that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Black SUVs with tinted windows, armed security, cameras everywhere. A man in a driver's uniform approached her. Mrs. Moretti, this way, please. Mrs. Moretti. She was going to have to get used to that name. The SUV was exactly as luxurious and intimidating as she expected. Leather seats, soundproof glass, enough legroom to stretch out completely. The driver said nothing as he pulled into Manhattan traffic. Aria watched the city scroll past through tinted windows. People on sidewalks living normal lives, going to normal jobs. Worried about normal problems like rent and relationships and whether they'd remembered to buy milk. She'd never be normal again. 20 minutes later, the SUV pulled up to a building that made Moretti Enterprises look modest. A residential tower on the Upper East Side that screamed billionaires only. Doormen in uniforms. Marble lobby. The kind of place where Aria's entire yearly salary wouldn't cover a month's maintenance fees. The driver opened her door. Top floor, Mrs. Moretti, penthouse A. Your thumbprint has been registered with building security. Aria stepped out onto pristine sidewalk, stared up at glass and steel reaching toward clouds. This was her home now. For the next 12 months, she'd live in luxury she couldn't have imagined yesterday, sleep in bedrooms bigger than her entire apartment, wear clothes worth thousands, attend galas with people who shape the world. And she'd do it all while pretending to love a man with empty eyes and a heart carved from ice. The elevator to the penthouse required both thumbprint and retinal scan. Aria pressed her thumb to the scanner and looked into the camera. Technology beeped its approval. The elevator rose. When the doors opened, she stepped into another world. The penthouse was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows on every wall showing Manhattan from impossible heights. Furniture that belonged in museums. Art that probably cost more than hospitals. A kitchen that could serve 50 people. Living spaces that flowed into each other with architectural precision. And standing in the center of it all, directing a team of movers carrying boxes, was a woman who radiated competence like other people radiate heat. She turned when Aria entered. Mrs. Moretti, I'm Elena Vasquez, Mr. Moretti's executive assistant. Her handshake was firm and professional. I'll be helping coordinate your schedule and public appearances. Your belongings are being placed in the East Wing, second door on the left. I took the liberty of having the room prepared with basics, but the stylist will handle the rest. Aria stared at her. My belongings fit in 3 boxes. Elena's expression softened fractionally. Then we'll make sure you have everything you need. The stylist arrives at 4. Dinner will be delivered at 7. Mr. Moretti typically works late, so you'll have the penthouse to yourself most evenings. Does he live here? When he's not traveling, his suite was in the West Wing, completely separate. Elena consulted her tablet. Tomorrow's gala starts at 8 p.m. Hair and makeup will arrive at 5. Your gown is being custom fitted as we speak. Jewelry will be provided. Aria's head spun. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be his wife. I don't know how to act at galas. How to talk to these people. How to... Pfft. You'll learn. Elena's voice was kind but firm. And I'll help. But the most important rule is simple. Trust Mr. Moretti in public. He'll guide you through every situation. Just follow his lead. Trust the man who blackmailed her into marriage. Sure. Simple. Elena showed her to the East Wing. The bedroom was bigger than Aria's entire Brooklyn apartment. King-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than a car. Private bathroom with a tub you could swim in. A walk-in closet currently empty except for 3 cardboard boxes containing everything Aria owned. "I'll leave you to settle in," Elena said. "If you need anything, just use the house phone. Press 1 for me, 2 for building services, 3 for security." She left. Aria stood in the center of obscene luxury and felt completely alone. She walked to the windows. Manhattan spread below like a glittering threat. Millions of people living their lives, completely unaware that Aria Bennett had just sold hers to survive. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The gala tomorrow is critical. Don't embarrass me." L. Aria stared at the message. Then she threw her phone on the $1,000 bed sheets and walked to the bathroom. She locked the door, turned on the shower to drown out sound, and finally let herself cry. The stylist arrived at exactly 4 p.m. Her name was Margot, and she looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Severe bob, perfect makeup, clothing that probably cost more than Aria's car. She swept into the penthouse, followed by 3 assistants carrying racks of clothing that looked like they'd been stolen from runways. "Aria Moretti." Margot said it like she was tasting expensive wine. "Let's see what we're working with." For the next 3 hours, Aria was measured, evaluated, dressed, and redressed in clothing that made her feel like a doll. Margot had opinions on everything. Aria's hair, "We'll fix that." Her skin, "You need better products." Her body, "You're too thin. We'll work with it." Her posture, "Stand like you belong in these clothes." Aria endured it in silence. By 7 p.m., her walk-in closet was full of designer labels she couldn't pronounce. Shoes that cost more than monthly rent. Handbags worth small fortunes. Jewelry that required insurance policies. Margot stood back, examining her work with critical satisfaction. "Better. Tomorrow's gown will arrive at 3 p.m. Don't eat anything that might bloat you. No salt. Limited water. The dress is unforgiving." Then she left with her assistants, leaving Aria standing in a bedroom full of someone else's life. Dinner arrived at 7:30. Gourmet delivery from a restaurant Aria had seen featured in magazines. She ate alone at a dining table that could seat 20. At 9 p.m., she heard the private elevator open. Lucien was home. Aria stood in the hallway, unsure whether to greet him or hide in her room. Before she could decide, he appeared from the foyer, already loosening his tie. He stopped when he saw her. They stared at each other across expensive flooring. "You settled in," Lucien said finally. "Your assistant is efficient." "Elena's the best." He studied her with those empty dark eyes. "Tomorrow night will be challenging. You'll meet people who would destroy you for sport if they sensed weakness." "Thanks for the pep talk." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "Don't try to win them over. Don't apologize for existing. Just stay close to me and let me handle the conversations." "What if someone asks how we met?" "We met at a charity art auction 6 months ago. You were volunteering, I was donating. We spoke briefly, then I pursued you relentlessly until you agreed to dinner." Aria blinked. "You have our fake history already scripted?" "I have everything scripted." Lucien walked past her toward the West Wing. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow starts early." He disappeared down the hallway. Aria stood alone in the massive penthouse, listening to silence press against her ears. Then she went to her room, climbed into the expensive bed, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged her under. She dreamed of her mother's face, and woke up to a text from Lucien at 6 a.m. "Breakfast meeting canceled. I'll see you at the gala. Don't be late." The car leaves at 7:30 p.m. Aria read the message twice. Then she got up and started preparing for her first public appearance as Mrs. Lucien Moretti, the woman who'd just become the biggest lie in Manhattan. The gown arrived at 3 p.m. in a box that looked like it cost more than Aria's college tuition. She stared at it spread across her bed. Midnight blue silk that caught light like water, a neckline that plunged just enough to be dangerous, fabric that would cling to every curve she didn't know she had. The price tag was still attached. Aria looked at the number and felt physically sick. $47,000. For one dress. She was supposed to wear someone's yearly salary to a party. The hair and makeup team arrived at 5. 3 people who descended on her like she was a project requiring intervention. They worked in focused silence, transforming her into someone she didn't recognize. Hair swept into an elegant twist that exposed her neck, makeup that made her eyes look enormous, and her lips look like they'd never smiled at anything innocent. When they finally stepped back, Aria looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. "Perfect," the lead stylist declared. "Mr. Moretti won't be able to take his eyes off you." Aria doubted Lucien Moretti looked at anything except ledgers and enemy weaknesses. They left at 6:45. Aria stood alone in her bedroom, wearing a $47,000 dress and feeling like an imposter wrapped in silk. Her phone buzzed. "Car's waiting. Don't keep me waiting longer." L. She took the elevator down. Her hands shook slightly against the expensive clutch they'd given her. Some designer name she couldn't remember, containing nothing except lipstick and her ID because apparently billionaire wives didn't carry their own credit cards. The SUV sat outside with its engine running. The driver opened the door. Aria slid inside and froze. Lucien sat in the back seat wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than a small car. He looked up from his phone, and for just a fraction of a second, something flickered in his expression. Not quite surprise, not quite approval. Something darker that made Aria's stomach tighten. "You clean up well," he said finally. "Thanks. You too." His mouth almost curved. Almost. "The gala will last 3 hours minimum. Stay beside me. Don't wander. Don't drink too much. Don't trust anyone who seems friendly." "Got it. Be paranoid and silent. Be smart and observant." Lucien pocketed his phone. "These people are sharks. They'll smell weakness and tear you apart for entertainment." "Sounds delightful." "It's survival." He studied her face with clinical detachment. "You're nervous." "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." The SUV pulled into traffic. "When we arrive, I'll help you out of the car. Keep your left hand visible. People will look for a wedding ring." Aria glanced at her bare hand. "I don't have—" Lucien reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it without ceremony. The ring inside caught every light in the vehicle and turned it into fire. A diamond so large it looked obscene, set in platinum with smaller stones circling it like satellites orbiting a star. The kind of ring that showed up in museum heists and insurance nightmares. "Give me your hand," Lucien said. Aria extended her left hand. It trembled slightly. Lucien took her hand in his fingers warm and steady, and slid the ring onto her finger with practiced efficiency. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably had her measured while she slept. "Don't lose it," he said. "It's worth more than most people's houses." Aria stared at the ring. It felt heavy, wrong, like wearing someone else's life on her finger. "How much?" she asked quietly. $2.3 million. Her breath stopped. "You put a $2 million ring on my hand and told me not to lose it?" "I'm telling you to be careful. There's a difference." Lucien released her hand. "It also sends a message. I don't do anything halfway, including my wife." The word felt like glass in her throat. They rode the rest of the way in silence. Manhattan blurred past the windows, lights and crowds, and a city that never stopped devouring people. Aria twisted the ring on her finger. It caught light and threw it back like accusations. The SUV finally stopped outside a building that looked like it had been designed to intimidate gods. The Plaza Hotel, transformed into a fortress of wealth for whatever charity event was pretending to save the world tonight. Red carpet, photographers, security everywhere, and a crowd of people in evening wear that collectively cost more than small nations. "Ready?" Lucien asked. "No." "Perfect. Let's go." The driver opened Lucien's door first. He stepped out with the kind of presence that made cameras flash immediately. Then he turned back toward the SUV and extended his hand. Aria took it. The moment her heels touched red carpet, the world exploded into light. Camera flashes from every direction, photographers shouting questions, security holding back a crowd that pressed forward like they were trying to touch something holy. Lucien's hand tightened around hers. "Smile. Look at me, not them." Aria looked up at him. He was already looking down at her with an expression that might have convinced anyone watching that he was completely devoted. His free hand moved to her waist, pulling her slightly closer in a gesture that looked protective and possessive simultaneously. "Mr. Moretti, is it true you've been married for 6 months?" "Lucien, how did you meet your wife?" "Mrs. Moretti, what do you do for a living?" The questions came like bullets. Lucien ignored them all, guiding Aria toward the entrance with steady pressure. They moved through chaos like they'd done it 1,000 times. His hand never left her waist. She focused on breathing and not tripping in heels that cost more than her car. Inside, the plaza had been transformed into something from a fever dream. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars, marble everything, ice sculptures depicting things Aria couldn't identify, waiters in perfect uniforms carrying champagne that probably cost more per glass than her hourly wage at the diner. And everywhere, people who looked like they owned pieces of the world. Lucien kept moving through the crowd. People stepped aside automatically. Some nodded in acknowledgement. Others looked away quickly, like making eye contact might be dangerous. A few watched Aria with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. "Why are they staring?" Aria murmured. "Because you're new, unknown, potentially exploitable." Lucien's voice stayed low. "And because half of them assumed I'd never marry anyone." "Why?" His jaw tightened fractionally. "Because I told them I wouldn't." Before Aria could process that, a woman materialized in front of them, late 50s, wearing diamonds that could fund hospitals, with a smile that didn't reach her calculating eyes. "Lucien, what a surprise to see you here." Her gaze slid to Aria like a knife. "And you must be the mysterious Mrs. Moretti everyone's talking about." "Victoria." Lucien's voice went flat. "This is my wife, Aria. Victoria Castellano. She runs a foundation that claims to help at-risk youth." Victoria's smile sharpened. "How charming! And what did you do before becoming Mrs. Moretti, dear?" The question was a trap. Aria could feel it. "I worked in hospitality," she said carefully. "How lovely. Which hotel?" Lucien's hand tightened on Aria's waist. "Aria prefers staying out of the spotlight. I'm sure you understand, Victoria. Privacy is valuable." "Of course." Victoria's eyes glittered. "Though I'm surprised you managed to keep a 6-month marriage secret. Usually news like that spreads through our circles immediately." "Maybe your circles aren't as informed as you think." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Victoria's smile froze. "Well, congratulations on your marriage, Lucien. I hope she lasts longer than your last engagement." She walked away before Lucien could respond. Aria felt him go rigid beside her. "What last engagement?" "Not here." His voice was ice. "Smile. Someone's watching." Aria forced her mouth to curve while her brain spun. Lucien had been engaged before, recently enough that Victoria could use it as a weapon. And he'd never mentioned it. They moved deeper into the gala. Lucien introduced her to a parade of people whose names Aria forgot immediately. Politicians with practiced smiles. CEOs who looked at her like she was a math problem they couldn't solve. Women who assessed her dress, her ring, her face with the precision of accountants calculating losses. And through it all, Lucien played the perfect devoted husband. His hand stayed on her waist or her back. He leaned close when speaking to her, creating intimacy that looked real from the outside. Once, he brushed hair from her face in a gesture so tender Aria almost forgot it was performance. Almost. 2 hours in, Aria excused herself to the restroom. She needed 5 minutes away from cameras and calculation. The bathroom was obscenely luxurious. Marble counters, gold fixtures, mirrors that showed every flaw. Aria leaned against the sink and tried to remember how to breathe normally. The door opened behind her. A woman walked in, early 30s, stunning in a red dress that looked painted on, with the kind of beauty that came from expensive maintenance and genetic luck. She stopped when she saw Aria, and something cold flickered in her eyes. "So you're the waitress who trapped him." Aria's stomach dropped. "Excuse me? Don't play innocent. Everyone knows what you are." The woman moved closer, her heels clicking against marble. "Lucien Moretti doesn't do love. He doesn't do marriage. He barely does human connection. So whatever game you're playing, whatever leverage you have, enjoy it while it lasts." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about the fact that 6 months ago, Lucien and I were planning our wedding." The woman's smile was poison. "I'm Isabelle Marchand, his former fiancée, the one he supposedly loved before you showed up out of nowhere and convinced him to marry you instead." Aria's brain short-circuited. "He was engaged to you?" "For 2 years. Our families had arrangements. alliances. Then suddenly he calls it off with no explanation, disappears for 6 months, and reappears married to someone nobody's ever heard of. Isabel's eyes narrowed. What did you do? Get pregnant? Blackmail him with something his enemies could use? I didn't. Aria stopped. How could she explain the truth when the truth was just as damning? You didn't what? Trap him? Manipulate him? Isabel laughed, sharp and bitter. Lucien Moretti doesn't get trapped, which means you're either the smartest woman alive or you're about to learn a very painful lesson about playing in leagues you don't understand. The bathroom door opened again. Another woman walked in, took one look at the tension, and walked right back out. Isabel stepped closer. He'll get bored of you. Whatever novelty you represent will wear off. And when it does, he'll end this joke of a marriage and move on. That's what he does. He uses people and discards them when they stop being useful. If he discarded you, why are you here? Wrong thing to say. Isabel's face went hard. Because unlike you, I know how this world works. I know what Lucien needs, and I know he'll realize his mistake eventually. When he does, I'll be waiting. She walked out, leaving Aria alone with her reflection and a growing sense of drowning. Aria splashed cold water on her wrists. Her hands shook. The $2 million ring caught light and mocked her. She'd signed a contract with a man who apparently destroyed engagements and disappeared for months. A man whose ex-fiancé looked at Aria like she was a temporary inconvenience. A man who'd built an empire on using people. And Aria had let him buy her for the price of her mother's life. She left the bathroom on unsteady legs and walked directly into a solid chest. Hands caught her shoulders. She looked up into Lucien's dark eyes. You were gone too long, he said quietly. I ran into your ex-fiancé. His expression went blank. What did Isabel say to you? That I'm a waitress who trapped you, that you'll get bored and discard me, that she knows you better than I ever will. Aria pulled away from his grip. You never mentioned being engaged. It wasn't relevant. You were engaged for 2 years, and then I wasn't. That's all you need to know. Aria stared at him. You can't just... This isn't the place. Lucien's voice dropped to something dangerous. We're leaving. Now. He started walking toward the exit. Aria followed because she didn't know what else to do. They moved through the gala like they were fleeing a crime scene. Lucien's hand on her back, his pace just slightly too fast to be casual. Outside, photographers still waited. Cameras flashed as they climbed into the SUV. Lucien gave the driver an address Aria didn't recognize. The moment the doors closed and the vehicle pulled into traffic, Lucien's control cracked. What exactly did Isabel say? His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Does it matter? Yes. She said you use people and throw them away when they stop being useful. Aria turned to face him in the dim interior. Is that what happened? You used her for 2 years, then discarded her? Lucien's jaw clenched. Our engagement was a business arrangement between families, nothing more. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Why? Aria felt something hot building in her chest. Why is your past engagement not relevant, but my entire life is documented in your files? You know everything about me. My jobs, my debts, my mother's medical history. But I'm not allowed to know why your fiancé thinks I'm a temporary inconvenience? Because my past doesn't affect our arrangement. Except it does. She's still here. Still watching. Still waiting for you to come back. I won't. How do I know that? How do I know anything about you except what you let me see? Aria's voice climbed. You bought me, Lucien. You paid for my mother's life and my compliance. But you didn't buy my trust that you have to earn. The SUV went silent except for the engine's hum. Lucien stared at her with those empty dark eyes. You want to know about Isabel? Fine. Our families arranged the engagement when I was 26. She was 22. Neither of us wanted it, but we understood the game. Strategic alliance, combined territories, more power for both sides. What happened? His hands clenched into fists. I found out she was feeding information to my enemies, trying to position herself to take over my organization from the inside. The engagement was never about partnership. It was about conquest. Aria's breath caught. She betrayed you. For 2 years, she played the perfect fiancé while systematically undermining everything I built. Lucien's voice stayed flat, but something dark moved behind his eyes. When I confronted her, She admitted it, laughed about it, said I was too emotionally compromised to see what was happening. So you ended it. I destroyed her family's business interests and ensured she'd never have leverage over anyone in my world again. His gaze locked onto Aria's. That's who I am. That's what I do when people betray me. So if you're having second thoughts about our arrangement, say so now. Aria stared at him. The feared mafia boss who'd been humiliated by someone he'd trusted, who'd learned that attachment meant vulnerability, who'd built a wall around his heart so high nothing could breach it. I'm not her, Aria said quietly. Everyone says that. I'm not playing a long game. I'm not trying to conquer anything. I just want my mother to live. For now, Lucien's voice was cold. But people change, motivations shift. Give it time. You'll find an angle worth exploiting. The words hit like slaps. Is that what you think? That I'm waiting to betray you? I think you're human, and humans are predictable. He looked away, staring out the tinted window at Manhattan's blur. Everyone wants something. Everyone has a price. I just paid yours before you could negotiate higher. Aria felt something crack inside her chest. You really don't believe anyone could be around you without ulterior motives. Give me one reason to believe differently. She couldn't. How could she? When their entire relationship was built on a contract, when every moment together was purchased and every interaction was transactional. The SUV stopped outside a building Aria didn't recognize. Not the penthouse, somewhere else. Darker, less polished. Where are we? She asked. Somewhere no one will look for us. Lucien opened his door. Come on. Against every survival instinct, Aria followed him. They were in a neighborhood that looked like money had forgotten it existed. Old warehouses, empty streets, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody reported them. Lucien led her to a building that looked abandoned. Crumbling brick, broken windows, a rusted door that shouldn't open. It opened. Inside was a boxing gym that looked like it had survived several wars. Concrete floors, punching bags hanging from chains, equipment that had seen better decades. And nobody else there. Just empty space and the smell of old sweat. Lucien shrugged off his tuxedo jacket, loosened his tie. Why are we here? Aria's voice echoed in the empty space. Because I need to hit something before I say things I'll regret. He walked to a punching bag and started wrapping his hands with practiced efficiency. And because you should see who you married. I know who I married. No, you know the version I show at galas, the controlled one, the one who smiles for cameras and plays politics. Lucien finished wrapping his hands and turned to face the bag. This is the other version. He hit the bag. The sound cracked through the gym like a gunshot. He hit it again. And again. Raw power channeled into violence. Each punch landed with controlled fury that made the chain rattle. He moved like someone who'd spent years learning how to hurt things. Aria watched him destroy his knuckles against leather and understood. This was what Lucien did with emotions he couldn't control. Transformed them into physical damage, turned pain into power. He kept hitting until sweat soaked through his dress shirt, until his breathing came hard and ragged, until the bag swung wild on its chain. Then he stopped. Lucien stood with his hands on his knees, chest heaving, looking more human than Aria had ever seen him. Isabel told you I use people, he said between breaths. She's not wrong. I build relationships that serve purposes. I make alliances that benefit my interests. I don't do emotional connections because they make you weak. They make you vulnerable. They make you a target. Then why marry me? Aria asked quietly. Why not just pay my debts and walk away? Because my family was forcing me toward another arranged marriage, another Isabel waiting to happen. I needed a wife they couldn't control. He straightened, his shirt clinging to his chest. You were perfect. No connections to my world, no family leverage, no ulterior motives beyond survival. So I'm just a shield. You're a solution to a problem. Lucien started unwrapping his hands. That's what we both are to each other. Solutions. Don't romanticize it into something it's not. Aria felt something hot build behind her eyes. You really think it's that simple? I know it is. Then why did you bring me here? Why show me this? She gestured at the gym. Why not just maintain the performance? Lucien went still. Because Isabel will try to destroy you. She'll spread rumors. She'll find weaknesses. She'll make you a target just to hurt me, and you need to understand what you're up against. I'm up against a woman who loved you. She never loved me. She loved what I represented. How do you know the difference? The question hit him harder than any punch. Aria saw it in the way his expression flickered, the way his hands clenched. I don't, he admitted finally. That's the problem. Silence filled the gym. Aria walked closer to him, her heels clicking against concrete. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see sweat on his neck, close enough to see his pulse beating beneath skin. I'm not Isabel, she said again. I know. Do you? Or do you just assume everyone will betray you eventually? Lucien met her eyes. Experience has taught me assumptions are safer than trust. Then we're both screwed, because this arrangement requires some level of trust just to survive. Trust and compliance are different things. So you want me to comply but never trust you? I want you to be smart enough to protect yourself, even from me. The words were meant to be warning. Instead, they felt like honesty, raw and painful. Aria reached up and loosened Lucien's tie the rest of the way. He didn't stop her. She pulled it free and dropped it on the floor between them. If we're going to survive 12 months of this, she said quietly, you need to stop treating me like I'm Isabel waiting to happen. And you need to stop expecting me to be someone I'm not. Who are you? Lucien's expression went dark. I'm the man who paid nearly $500,000 to save your mother's life and bought you a $2 million ring to make you look legitimate. I'm the man who will protect you from my world as long as you follow the rules. But I'm also the man who will end this arrangement the second it becomes a liability. Because feelings make you weak. Because feelings get people killed. Aria stared at him. Someone hurt you, badly, and you've been running from it ever since. I don't run. Then what do you call this? Hiding behind contracts and conditions, building walls so high nobody can reach you, destroying anyone who gets close before they can destroy you first. She stepped closer. That's not strength, Lucien. That's fear. His hand shot out and caught her wrist. Not hard, not hurting, just stopping her. Don't psychoanalyze me, he said quietly. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. Help me understand why you're so terrified of being human. Because being human means caring, and caring means weakness, and weakness gets you killed. His grip tightened fractionally. I've survived this long by eliminating vulnerabilities. You're asking me to create one. I'm asking you to remember you're not a machine. Maybe I should be. Machines don't get betrayed. They don't get hurt. They don't... He stopped himself. They don't what? Lucien released her wrist and stepped back. We should go. It's late. You can't keep running from this conversation. Watch me. He grabbed his jacket and tie and walked toward the exit. Aria stood in the middle of the empty gym, surrounded by punching bags and the ghost of whatever pain Lucien refused to name. Then she followed him. Because she'd signed a contract, and because despite everything, despite the lies and the money and the fear, part of her wanted to understand the man behind the monster. The SUV waited outside. They climbed in silently. The driver knew better than to ask questions. Manhattan scrolled past, lights and shadows, a city that devoured people and spit out their bones. Isabel will come after me, Aria said into the silence. Yes. What should I do? Lucien looked at her. Nothing. Stay visible. Stay close to me. Let her make the first move. Then we'll destroy her so thoroughly she'll wish she'd stayed quiet. You talk about destroying people like it's grocery shopping. In my world, it is. Aria twisted the ring on her finger. $2 million of insurance against being ordinary, against being forgotten, against being dismissed. Did you love her? The question came out before she could stop it. Lucien's expression went blank. No. Did you try? His jaw clenched. I don't know how. The honesty in those 4 words broke something in Aria's chest. They rode the rest of the way in silence. Back at the penthouse, Lucien disappeared into his wing without saying goodnight. Aria stood in the massive living room, still wearing a $47,000 dress, feeling like she'd survived a war. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy playing Mrs. Moretti while it lasts. When he's done with you, I'll still be here. Isabel. Aria stared at the message. Then she walked to her bedroom, locked the door, and called the one person who still felt real. Her mother answered on the second ring. Aria, sweetheart, it's late. Are you okay? Just hearing Caroline's voice made everything hurt worse. I'm fine, Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice. The doctor said you arranged all this. The new wing, the specialists, everything. Caroline's voice cracked. Baby, what did you do? I married someone who could help. Do you love him? The question hung in the air like accusation. Aria looked at the ring on her finger, thought about Lucien's empty eyes and careful control, thought about contracts and conditions and the no falling in love clause that would end everything. I'm trying to, she lied. That's not the same thing. I know. Caroline was quiet for a moment. Your father left because he couldn't handle the weight of loving us. He said it made him weak, made him afraid. Aria's throat closed. Don't marry a man who thinks love is weakness, Caroline said softly. It never ends well. It's too late. I already did. Then teach him differently, or leave before you drown trying. They talked for another 10 minutes about nothing important. Hospital food, the view from Caroline's window, small things that felt like lifelines. When Aria hung up, she sat on her expensive bed in her expensive room and wondered how long she could survive being a solution instead of a person. Her phone buzzed again. Lucien this time. Tomorrow we're having lunch with my mother. Wear something conservative. She's worse than Isabel. Aria read the message 3 times. Then she lay back on $1,000 sheets and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged her under. She dreamed of drowning in diamonds and woke up to someone knocking on her bedroom door. Aria sat up, disoriented. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. The clock on the nightstand read 9:43 a.m. The knocking continued. Come in, she called. Elena Vasquez entered carrying a garment bag and looking apologetic. Good morning, Mrs. Moretti. Mr. Moretti asked me to ensure you're prepared for lunch. It's at noon. Location is his mother's estate in the Hamptons. Aria's stomach dropped. The Hamptons? That's 2 hours away. Helicopter leaves at 10:30. Hair and makeup are waiting in the guest suite. Elena laid the garment bag across a chair. The dress code is conservative elegance. Mrs. Moretti Sr. prefers traditional presentation. Of course she does. Elena's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, she terrifies everyone, even Mr. Moretti. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be honest. Elena checked her tablet. You have 40 minutes. Can you be ready? Aria looked at the garment bag, at the ring on her finger, at the life she'd sold herself into. Do I have a choice? Not really. Then I'll be ready. Elena left. Aria opened the garment bag and found a dress that looked like it belonged in a 1950s etiquette manual. High neck, long sleeves, hem below the knee. Expensive fabric in muted gray that screamed respectable wife of important man. She showered quickly and let the hair and makeup team transform her into someone appropriate for meeting a matriarch. They worked faster this time, more efficient. When they finished, Aria looked like she belonged in a museum painting titled Dutiful Wife. She hated it. At 10:25, she took the elevator to the building's private helipad. Lucien waited beside a helicopter that looked like it cost more than hospitals, wearing a suit that probably did too. He looked her over when she approached. Perfect. She'll approve. Lucky me. Something almost like amusement flickered in his eyes. She's going to test you, ask invasive questions, try to find weaknesses. Don't take it personally. She does it to everyone. Even you? Especially me. I'm her greatest disappointment and her most valuable asset simultaneously. They climbed into the helicopter. The pilot didn't acknowledge them, probably paid to be invisible. The rotors started spinning. Aria's stomach lurched as they lifted off. Manhattan fell away below them. The city that had swallowed her whole now looked small and distant. Lucien sat across from her, reviewing documents on a tablet like flying to meet his terrifying mother was routine. What should I know about her? Aria asked over the helicopter noise. Lucien looked up. Victoria Moretti built half my empire before I was born. She's ruthless, brilliant, and completely without sentiment. She views relationships as transactions and emotions as liabilities. She sounds like you. I learned from the best. What happened to your father? Lucien's expression went blank. He's dead. She killed him. Aria's breath stopped. What? Not literally, though sometimes I wonder. Lucien returned his attention to the tablet. He tried to betray her. She destroyed his reputation, his business interests, and his will to live. He died of a heart attack 6 months later. She didn't attend the funeral. That's horrifying. That's survival. The helicopter cut through clouds. Aria stared at the man across from her and wondered what it cost to grow up with a mother who viewed love as weakness and betrayal as inevitable. They landed on a private estate that looked like it had been designed to intimidate gods. Massive mansion, manicured grounds, security that was visible enough to send messages but subtle enough to maintain elegance. A butler met them at the helicopter pad. "Mr. Moretti, Mrs. Moretti, your mother is waiting in the garden." They walked through the mansion. Art that belonged in museums, furniture that had survived centuries, silence that felt like judgment. Outside, a garden stretched in geometric perfection. And in the center, sitting beneath a white gazebo like a queen on a throne, waited Victoria Moretti. She was 70 and looked 50. Silver hair swept into perfect elegance, a dress that cost more than cars, jewelry that could fund small nations. But it was her eyes that hit hardest, dark and calculating, exactly like Lucien's, but with decades more practice at seeing through people. She studied Aria the way scientists study specimens. "So this is the waitress who trapped my son." Lucien's hand found the small of Aria's back. "Mother, this is my wife, Aria." "I know who she is. I've read the file." Victoria gestured to chairs across from her. "Sit. Let me look at you properly." They sat. Aria felt like she was being evaluated for auction. Victoria sipped tea from china that probably cost more than Aria's childhood. "Tell me, Aria, what exactly do you bring to this marriage besides debt and desperation?" The words were surgical, designed to cut. Aria met Victoria's eyes and refused to look away. "Honestly, I don't lie to him. I don't manipulate him. And I'm not trying to conquer his empire from the inside." Victoria's eyebrow lifted fractionally. "So you know about Isabel? I met her last night." "And? And she's still in love with what Lucien represents. I'm not." "What are you in love with?" The trap snapped closed. Aria felt Lucien go still beside her. "I'm in love with keeping my mother alive," Aria said carefully. "Everything else is secondary." Victoria's smile was sharp. "At least you're honest about being purchased. Most women try to pretend otherwise." Most women didn't sign a contract with termination clauses. The words came out before Aria could stop them. Lucien's hand tightened on her back in warning. But Victoria laughed, actually laughed. "She has a spine. How refreshing. Most of the women you bring around are either terrified or calculating. This one is simply surviving." "She's sitting right here," Aria said. Victoria's eyes gleamed. "Yes, you are. Which brings me to why I wanted to meet you." She set down her teacup with deliberate precision. "Lucien's engagement to Isabel was mutually beneficial to both our families. Strategic, profitable. When he ended it, he cost me significant political capital." "I'm sorry?" "Don't apologize. Understand." Victoria leaned forward slightly. "You are now my daughter-in-law, which means you represent this family in public. Your behavior reflects on our name. Your mistakes become our problems. And if you embarrass us, there will be consequences." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Victoria's voice stayed pleasant. "I don't make threats. I make promises. And I promise you this. If you prove to be anything like Isabel, if you betray my son or damage this family, I will destroy you so completely that even your mother's death won't be remembered as your greatest tragedy." Silence fell like a guillotine. Aria stared at the woman who'd just threatened her with casual efficiency. Then she stood up. "Aria, Lucien started. "No." Aria's voice shook but held. "I sat here because you asked me to. I flew here because it was required, but I won't sit here and be threatened for crimes I haven't committed. I'm not Isabel. I'm not anyone except a woman trying to keep her mother alive. If that makes me a disappointment or a weakness or whatever else you think, fine, but I'm not going to apologize for surviving." Victoria stared at her, then she smiled, a real smile this time. "Sit down, Aria." "No." "Sit down, please." The please changed everything. Aria sat slowly. Victoria nodded once, like Aria had just passed a test. Most people cower when I threaten them. They apologize. They promise to do better. They prove they're weak. She glanced at Lucien. You married someone with a spine. That's progress. She's not property to be evaluated, Lucien said quietly. Everything is property to be evaluated. You taught me that. Victoria turned back to Aria. I apologize for my methods, but I needed to know what you're made of, and now I do. Which is? Something tougher than I expected. Victoria picked up her tea again. Lunch is ready. Let's eat. And Aria, you can call me Victoria. Mother is reserved for people I actually like. Lunch with Lucien Moretti was psychological warfare disguised as fine dining. They sat at a table beneath ancient oak trees, eating food that probably cost more per bite than Aria used to make in a day. Victoria asked questions designed to expose weakness. Where Aria grew up, what her father did before he abandoned them, whether she'd ever imagined marrying into wealth. Each question was a scalpel, cutting just deep enough to hurt without drawing visible blood. Aria answered honestly because lying to Victoria felt like suicide. Lucien sat beside her, a silent presence that radiated controlled tension. His hand rested on the back of her chair. Possessive to anyone watching, protective to anyone paying attention. Every time Victoria's questions cut too deep, his fingers would tighten slightly against the wood. A warning. A reminder that he was there. So your mother is dying, Victoria said over dessert, her tone as casual as discussing weather. Congestive heart failure, stage 4. Without intervention, she has perhaps 6 months remaining. Aria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. How do you... I know everything about everyone my son brings into this family. It's how I've survived 70 years in a world designed to destroy women. Victoria dabbed her mouth with a napkin that probably cost more than silverware. Your desperation makes you useful. Desperation is predictable, controllable. Mother. Lucien's voice dropped to something dangerous. Don't mother me. You married her specifically because she was desperate. Don't pretend otherwise. Victoria's eyes locked onto Aria. The question is whether that desperation will make you loyal or reckless. Loyal people are valuable. Reckless people are liabilities. I'm not reckless. You married my son after knowing him for less than 24 hours. That's either desperate or insane, possibly both. Aria set down her fork carefully. Would you have let your daughter die to avoid being desperate? Victoria's expression didn't change. I don't have a daughter. I had 3 sons. 2 of them are dead because they were reckless. Lucien survived because he learned to be ruthless instead. Which are you, Aria? Reckless or ruthless? The question hung in the air like smoke. I'm neither. I'm just trying to keep someone I love alive. Love. Victoria said the word like it tasted bitter. Love is the emotion that gets people killed faster than any other. It makes you compromise, makes you weak, makes you choose heart over head. It also makes life worth living. Does it? Or does it just make the pain of loss sharper when everything falls apart? Aria looked at Lucien. He sat perfectly still, his expression carefully blank, but something moved behind his eyes, something that looked like old pain wrapped in scar tissue. What happened to your other sons? Aria asked quietly. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Victoria's eyes went flat. That's not a conversation for lunch. Mother, Lucien started. Your brother Marco died because he fell in love with the wrong woman, Victoria said, cutting him off. She was an undercover federal agent. He knew it. He didn't care. He compromised operations, leaked information, destroyed years of careful planning, all because he convinced himself love mattered more than survival. Aria's stomach turned. What happened to him? I killed him myself. Victoria said it like discussing stock prices. Before his weakness could destroy the entire family, before his emotional attachment could send us all to prison, I put a bullet in his head and buried him in a place no one will ever find. The world tilted sideways. Aria stared at the woman who'd just admitted to murdering her own son, who sat there eating dessert like matricide was a reasonable business decision. You're lying. Aria's voice came out hoarse. I never lie. Lying is for people who are afraid of consequences. Victoria's gaze shifted to Lucien. Tell her. Tell your wife what happens when emotions compromise this family. Lucien's jaw clenched so hard Aria could see muscle jump beneath skin. Marco made his choice. He knew the risks. And you executed those risks. Literally. Victoria smiled without warmth. You were 17. I handed you the gun, and you didn't hesitate. Because you understood that love is weakness, and weakness gets everyone killed. Aria pushed back from the table. Her chair scraped against stone. I need to use the bathroom. Second door on the left inside the house. Victoria didn't look at her. Don't take too long, we have much more to discuss. Aria walked away on legs that felt disconnected from her body. Behind her, she heard Victoria say something to Lucien in Italian, harsh words that sounded like accusations. Inside the mansion, Aria found the bathroom and locked herself inside. Marble, gold fixtures, a mirror that showed every crack in her composure. She braced her hands against the sink and tried to remember how to breathe. Lucien had killed his own brother, on his mother's orders, at 17 years old, because Marco had fallen in love. The no falling in love clause in their contract suddenly made horrifying sense. Aria splashed cold water on her face. Her hands shook. The $2 million ring caught light and mocked her. She'd married into a family where love was a death sentence. A soft knock on the door made her jump. Aria, Lucien's voice muffled through wood. We need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. She unlocked the door. Lucien pushed inside and closed it behind him. In the confined space, he looked bigger, more dangerous, like the walls were pressing them together. What my mother told you, Stis, he started, is true. I can see it in your face. Aria stepped back until she hit the sink. You killed your brother because he fell in love. I killed my brother because he was going to destroy everything we'd built. Because his federal agent girlfriend had enough evidence to send our entire family to prison for the rest of our lives. Because love made him weak, and weakness would have killed us all. He was your brother. He was a liability. Lucien's voice stayed flat, but his hands clenched into fists. You want to judge me? Fine, but don't pretend you wouldn't make the same choice if your mother's life depended on it. The comparison hit like a physical blow. That's different. Is it? You signed a contract that makes you legally bound to a man you don't know. You agreed to lie to everyone for 12 months. You're playing a role that could get you killed if the wrong people find out the truth. All to keep your mother alive. Lucien stepped closer. We're the same, Aria. We both sacrifice whatever it takes to protect what matters. The only difference is I'm honest about it. No. The difference is I wouldn't kill someone I love. That's because you've never had to choose. His eyes went dark. But you will. Eventually, everyone does. And when that moment comes, you'll understand why emotions are luxuries people like us can't afford. Aria stared at him. People like us. People who survive. I don't want to survive like this. I don't want to become someone who calculates whether love is worth murder. Then you should have stayed in Brooklyn and watched your mother die. Lucien turned toward the door. We're leaving. My mother made her point. She wanted you to understand what this family is. Now you do. He walked out. Aria stood in the bathroom surrounded by marble and gold and the ghost of Lucien's brother, a boy who died at 17 because he'd been forced to execute his own sibling, a boy who'd turned into a man who believed emotions were fatal. She walked back outside. Victoria still sat beneath the oak trees sipping tea like nothing had happened. Aria, there you are. I hope the facilities were adequate. Your son is waiting, Aria said quietly. Of course he is. Lucien hates lingering in places where his past lives. Victoria stood with elegant precision. Before you leave, one more thing. She reached into a designer handbag and pulled out a folder, handed it to Aria. What is this? Information about Isabelle Marchand, her current activities, her financial vulnerabilities, her connections to people who would happily destroy my son. Victoria's smile was sharp. She's planning something. I don't know what yet, but when she makes her move, you'll need ammunition. Consider this a wedding gift. Aria took the folder. It felt heavy, wrong. Why are you helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm protecting my son. There's a difference. Victoria's expression softened fractionally. You survived lunch without breaking. That means you're stronger than most. Use that strength. You're going to need it. Then she walked back toward her mansion, leaving Aria standing in manicured gardens holding evidence of someone else's destruction. Lucien waited by the helicopter. He looked exhausted, older than his years, Like lunch had cost him something invisible but vital. They flew back to Manhattan in silence. The helicopter cut through clouds. Below, the world spread in miniature. Cars and buildings and lives that looked manageable from this height. "Did you know," Aria asked finally, "that your mother would tell me about Marco?" "I suspected. And you brought me anyway. You needed to understand what you married into, what this family is, what I am." Lucien stared out the window. "Better you know now than find out later when it's too late to protect yourself." "Protect myself from what? You?" He looked at her. "From everything. This world eats people like you. Innocent people who think honesty and effort matter. You need to become harder, colder, or you won't survive." "I don't want to become like you." "Then you'll die like Marco." Believing love conquers everything, right up until the moment it destroys you. The words were meant to be warning. Instead, they felt like prophecy. They landed back at the penthouse as evening turned Manhattan's skyline into broken glass. Aria went straight to her room and locked the door. She opened Victoria's folder. Inside, photographs of Isabel meeting with men in expensive suits. Financial records showing offshore accounts. Email printouts discussing leverage and exposure. And at the bottom, a single handwritten note. "She's been collecting evidence against Lucien for 6 months, planning to release it to federal prosecutors the moment she finds something that will stick. Your marriage threw off her timeline, but didn't stop her plans. Watch your back." Aria's hands shook. Isabel wasn't just a scorned ex-fiancée. She was actively trying to destroy Lucien, and Aria had just become collateral damage. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. The address below. Come alone or don't come at all." An address in Brooklyn, a coffee shop Aria used to frequent when she could afford coffee. She stared at the message. Every instinct screamed trap, but curiosity and fear mixed into something that felt like necessity. Aria texted back, "I'll be there." The response came immediately. "Smart girl. Don't tell Lucien. This is between us." Aria deleted the messages and threw her phone across the room. Then she pulled out the contract she'd signed. Read through the termination clauses, the no emotional attachment section, the financial penalties for early dissolution. Somewhere in this building, Lucien was probably working, making deals, destroying enemies, carrying the weight of a brother he'd killed and a mother who'd turned him into a weapon. Aria wondered if he ever regretted it. She wondered if regret was an emotion he'd murdered along with Marco. The next day passed in excruciating slowness. Aria told Elena she needed personal time. Elena didn't ask questions, probably assumed Mrs. Moretti needed therapy after meeting Victoria. She arranged a car and driver for 2 p.m. Aria dressed in jeans and a sweater, clothing from her old life. She left the $2 million ring in her jewelry box because wearing it to Brooklyn felt obscene. The driver took her to an address in Crown Heights, a neighborhood she knew well, streets where she'd walked to work, to the grocery store, to the clinic when she couldn't afford real doctors. The coffee shop was exactly as she remembered, small, worn, honest. People inside looked like they worked 3 jobs just to survive. They looked like her. Isabel sat in a corner booth, looking criminally out of place in designer clothing and perfect makeup. She watched Aria enter with cold calculation. Aria walked over and sat down without being invited. "You came," Isabel said. "You threatened me. What did you expect?" "I didn't threaten you. I offered information." Isabel slid a folder across the table. Different folder, thicker. "Open it." Aria didn't touch it. "What is this?" "The truth about your husband." "I know who I married. Do you? Do you know about the federal investigation that's been circling him for 15 years? The witnesses who've disappeared? The businesses that burned when owners refused to cooperate? The people who've died because they got between Lucien Moretti and what he wanted? I know he's not a good man. He's not a man at all. He's a monster who learned to wear expensive suits." Isabel's eyes glittered. "And you're his latest victim. You just don't know it yet." Aria's jaw clenched. "Why am I here?" "Because I'm offering you a way out." Isabel leaned forward. "I have evidence that will put Lucien in federal prison for the rest of his life. Wire fraud, racketeering, money laundering, murder, Everything prosecutors have been trying to prove for years. I'm taking it to the FBI next week. Aria's stomach dropped. You're going to testify against him. I'm going to bury him, and everyone connected to him. Isabel's smile was poison, including you, unless you help me. Help you how? Get me access to his personal files, the ones he keeps in his private office, encrypted drives, physical documents, things even my lawyers couldn't access during our engagement. Isabel pulled out a small device that looked like a USB drive. Plug this into his computer. It'll copy everything automatically. Takes 3 minutes, then you walk away. And if I refuse? Then you go down with him. Accomplice to organized crime, conspiracy, money laundering through your mother's medical expenses. Isabel's voice stayed pleasant. The FBI will freeze every account. Your mother's treatment stops immediately, and you spend the next 20 years in federal prison wondering if saving her was worth destroying both your lives. Aria couldn't breathe. You're lying. Am I? Open the folder. Aria opened it with shaking hands. Inside, legal documents, federal subpoenas, witness statements, financial records tracing money from Moretti Enterprises through shell companies to her mother's hospital account. Every transaction documented, every payment tracked, evidence that made Aria look like a willing participant in money laundering. This is fake, Aria whispered. It's real, and it's going to a grand jury next month unless you help me. Isabel leaned back. I don't want to hurt you, Aria. You're just a girl who got trapped by a monster. But I will hurt you if that's what it takes to destroy Lucien. So choose. Help me, and I'll make sure prosecutors know you were coerced. Refuse, and you burn with him. Aria's vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. She'd signed a contract to save her mother, not to become an accomplice to federal crimes, not to face prison time for accepting help she desperately needed. How do I know you'll keep your word? Aria's voice cracked. You don't, but right now I'm your only option. Isabel pushed the USB drive across the table. 3 minutes. That's all I need. Think about it. You have 48 hours to decide. She stood and walked out, leaving Aria alone with evidence of her own destruction. Aria sat in the coffee shop for 20 minutes, staring at the folder, at the USB drive, at the life she'd thought she was building crumbling into ash. Finally, she gathered everything and left. The driver waited outside. He said nothing as Aria climbed in, probably paid to be blind and deaf. Back at the penthouse, Aria went straight to her room and locked the door. She spread the folder's contents across her bed. Read every document 3 times. It was real. All of it. Federal prosecutors had been building a case against Lucien for years. And Aria's sudden financial windfall, her mother's paid medical bills, the cleared debts, the monthly stipend, all of it looked exactly like money laundering, because it was. Lucien had paid her with dirty money, made her complicit without telling her, turned her into a criminal the moment she signed that contract. Aria's phone buzzed, a text from Lucien. Dinner at 8. Be presentable. We're meeting business associates. She stared at the message. 48 hours to decide whether to betray her husband or go to prison with him. 48 hours to choose between survival and loyalty to a man who'd killed his own brother for falling in love. Aria looked at the USB drive. Small, innocent looking. 3 minutes of betrayal that could save her life, or destroy what was left of her soul. Dinner was at a restaurant so exclusive it didn't have a name, just an address whispered among people who could afford to eat there. Private room. Armed security at every door. Men in expensive suits discussing business that would never appear in any legal documents. Aria sat beside Lucien, wearing a dress Elena had selected. Elegant, conservative, forgettable. The perfect accessory for a crime boss's wife. The men at the table discussed territories and percentages and problems that needed handling. They spoke in code, but the violence underneath their polite language was obvious. These were people who solved problems with money and murder. And Lucien sat among them like a king among lesser predators. Aria pushed food around her plate and said nothing. Your wife is quiet tonight, one of the men observed. Silver hair, cold eyes. The kind of face that had seen terrible things and probably ordered worse. Is she always this silent? Aria prefers listening to performing, Lucien said smoothly. His hand found her knee under the table, possessive, warning. She's smarter than most people I meet. knows when to speak and when to observe. Wise in a woman. My wife talks constantly, drives me insane. The men laughed. Aria felt sick. She excused herself to the bathroom. Lucien's hand tightened on her knee briefly before releasing. A silent message. Don't be long. In the bathroom, more marble, more gold, more obscene luxury. Aria leaned against the sink and tried to remember who she'd been before all this, before contracts and diamonds and evidence of federal crimes. The door opened. A woman walked in, late 20s, beautiful in a way that looked expensive. She froze when she saw Aria. Mrs. Moretti. Recognition and something else, fear, flickered across her face. Do I know you? No, but I know you. The woman walked to the mirror, checking makeup she didn't need to check. You married Lucien 6 months ago. Everyone in this world knows about you. Who are you? Someone who made the same mistake you're making. The woman's reflection met Aria's in the mirror. Thinking you can survive in this world by being good, by following rules, by believing the men you marry will protect you. I don't. My husband is out there right now, discussing business with yours, planning things that will get people killed, and I sit there and smile and pretend I don't know what he is. The woman's voice dropped. Do you know what your husband is, Mrs. Moretti? Really know? Aria's throat closed. He's a monster who kills anyone who threatens his empire, including family, including people he claims to care about. The woman turned to face her directly. My husband told me about Marco, Lucien's brother, how Lucien executed him without hesitation when Victoria gave the order. 17 years old and already a perfect killer. Stop. Why? Because it hurts to hear? Because you want to pretend the man you married has a soul underneath the violence? The woman stepped closer. He doesn't. None of them do. They're weapons, and we're just collateral damage waiting to happen. Then why stay? Because leaving means dying. Because they own us completely. Because... The woman's voice cracked. Because sometimes you sign contracts before you understand what you're agreeing to, and by the time you realize the truth, escape is already impossible. She walked out, leaving Aria alone with her reflection and the growing certainty that she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Aria returned to the table. Lucien glanced at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Everything all right? Fine. They finished dinner in excruciating slowness. The men talked. Lucien participated with practiced ease. Aria counted minutes until she could leave. Back in the SUV, alone with Lucien, the silence felt suffocating. You were quiet tonight, Lucien observed. You told me to listen and observe. I also told you to be present. You looked like you were somewhere else entirely. Aria stared out the window. I met someone in the bathroom, a wife of one of your associates. She told me about Marco. Lucien went still. What did she tell you? That you killed him without hesitation, that you were 17 and already a perfect weapon. Aria turned to face him. Is that what I am to you? Another weapon? A tool to use against your family's arranged marriages? You know what you are. We signed a contract that explicitly defines our arrangement. A contract you paid for with dirty money. Money that makes me complicit in federal crimes. Aria pulled out her phone and showed him Isabel's text. She knows. She has evidence. And she's going to the FBI unless I help her destroy you. The temperature in the SUV plummeted. Lucien's expression went blank. When did Isabel contact you? Yesterday. She gave me 48 hours to decide. And you're telling me this now, 24 hours later? I was trying to figure out if you deliberately made me an accessory to your crimes, or if it was just convenient collateral damage. Lucien's jaw clenched so hard Aria heard teeth grind. Stop the car! The driver pulled over immediately. Get out, Lucien said. What? Both of you, out. The driver and bodyguard in the front seat exited without question, closing the doors and standing several yards away. Lucien turned to Aria with fury barely contained beneath his skin. You think I deliberately implicated you in federal crimes? I think you paid my mother's medical bills with money that came from illegal sources. I think you cleared my debts using funds that prosecutors can trace directly to organized crime. I think you made me complicit the moment I signed that contract and you never once warned me. Aria's voice shook. So yes, I think you either did it on purpose or you didn't care enough to protect me from the consequences. I protected you by making you untouchable, by tying you to me so thoroughly that anyone who comes after you has to go through me first. Lucien's control cracked. Every dollar I spent on your mother's treatment is documented as a gift from a husband to his wife's family. Completely legal. The debt clearance was a wedding present. Also legal. The monthly stipend is spousal support. Legal. Then why does Isabel have evidence that says otherwise? Because Isabel is lying, creating documents that look real to force you into betraying me. Lucien grabbed her shoulders. Don't you understand? She's using the exact same tactics she used against Marco. Find someone close to me. Threaten them with prosecution. Turn them into weapons against me. It's her pattern. How do I know you're not lying? The question hung between them like a blade. Lucien released her and sat back. You don't. That's the problem. You don't trust me. I don't trust you. We're two people bound by a contract, playing roles, waiting for the other to betray first. Then maybe this was doomed from the beginning. Maybe it was. Lucien's voice went flat. So what are you going to do? Plant Isabel's device in my computer? Betray me to save yourself? Prove that everyone who gets close to me eventually destroys me? Aria pulled the USB drive from her purse, held it up between them. She gave me this, told me to plug it into your computer. 3 minutes and I could copy everything, save myself from federal prosecution. Lucien stared at the device. Are you going to do it? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. Aria's hands shook. You killed your brother because he fell in love. You built an empire on fear and violence. You bought me like property and made me complicit in crimes I didn't understand. Why shouldn't I save myself? Because despite everything, I've kept every promise I made to you. Your mother has the best medical care in the country. Your debts are gone. You live in luxury most people can't imagine. I've protected you from my world even when it cost me politically. Lucien's eyes burned. I've given you everything except my trust, and you're considering betraying me anyway. You never trusted me to begin with, because trust gets you killed. Look at Marco. Look at what happened when he trusted the wrong person. Lucien's voice cracked fractionally. I was 17, she was 23. Federal agent undercover as a law student. Marco fell in love with her, told her everything, and she recorded every word. When my mother found out, she didn't give me a choice. Kill Marco or let the FBI destroy the entire family. Everyone. Not just my brother, my mother, my other brother. Everyone. Aria's vision blurred. So I did it. I put a gun to my brother's head and I pulled the trigger because keeping him alive meant watching everyone else die. Lucien looked away. And I've lived with that choice every day since, wondering if there was another option, wondering if I could have saved him, wondering if I'm actually the monster everyone says I am. Silence filled the SUV. Aria looked at the man beside her, the feared mafia boss who'd been forced to murder his own brother, who'd spent years building walls to prevent anyone from getting close enough to hurt him again, who'd married a desperate waitress because she couldn't destroy what he'd already destroyed in himself. I'm not going to plant the device, Aria said quietly. Lucien's head snapped toward her. Why not? Because despite everything, you've never lied to me. You told me exactly what this arrangement was. You warned me about your world. You gave me a choice even when that choice was designed to trap me. She dropped the USB drive on the seat between them. And because I'm not Isabel. I'm not Marco's girlfriend. I'm not someone who destroys people for leverage. You'd go to prison to protect me? I'd go to prison rather than become someone who betrays people for survival. Aria met his eyes. There's a difference. Lucien stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Then he picked up the USB drive and crushed it in his fist. Plastic and circuitry cracked. He opened the window and threw the pieces into Manhattan traffic. Isabel made a mistake, he said quietly. What mistake? She assumed you were like everyone else in my world, motivated by self-preservation above everything else. Lucien's expression shifted into something dark and focused. But you're not. You're willing to sacrifice yourself for people you love. That makes you dangerous in ways she didn't anticipate. I'm not dangerous. I'm just tired of being afraid. Fear and danger aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing. Lucien pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me. I need everything on Isabelle Marchand, financial records, communication logs, locations for the past 6 months, and I need it tonight. He hung up. What are you doing? Aria asked. Protecting you. Protecting us. Protecting this arrangement from someone who wants to destroy it. Lucien's eyes went cold. Isabelle threatened my wife. That means she threatened me. And I don't let threats go unanswered. What are you going to do to her? Whatever it takes. The words were meant to be reassuring. Instead, they felt like the beginning of something terrible. Lucien knocked on the window. The driver and bodyguard returned immediately. The SUV pulled back into traffic. They rode in silence. Back at the penthouse, Lucien disappeared into his office. Aria heard him making calls, giving orders, orchestrating whatever response he'd planned for Isabelle. Aria went to her room and sat on her expensive bed surrounded by luxury purchased with blood money. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 48 hours are up. I take your silence as refusal. Big mistake. See you in court. Aria showed the message to Lucy. When he finally emerged from his office at 2 a.m., he read it without expression. She's moving faster than I expected. What does that mean? It means she's desperate, which makes her sloppy, which gives us an advantage. Lucien looked exhausted. I need you to do something for me. What? Tomorrow, you're going to receive a call from Isabelle's lawyers. They'll ask you to give a deposition about our marriage, about how we met, about financial arrangements. Lucien's eyes locked onto hers. You're going to tell them the truth. Aria's stomach dropped. The truth? Every word. How we met at the gala. How I offered you a contract. How I paid your mother's medical bills. All of it. His expression was unreadable. Don't lie. Don't protect me. Just tell them exactly what happened. That'll destroy you. Or it'll destroy Isabelle's credibility. She's building her case on the assumption that our marriage is fake. That you're a victim of coercion. That I'm hiding criminal activity behind a facade of legitimacy. Lucien's smile was sharp. But if you testify that everything was consensual, that I was transparent about our arrangement, that you chose this knowingly, suddenly her entire narrative collapses. You want me to admit we have a contract marriage? I want you to admit we have an honest arrangement, which is more than Isabelle can say about anything she's ever done. Lucien moved closer. Can you do that? Can you sit across from lawyers and investigators and tell them the truth without breaking? Aria thought about her mother, about the contract, about 48 hours of fear and impossible choices. Yes. Good. Lucien turned toward his wing. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. He walked away, leaving Aria alone with the growing certainty that she'd just agreed to something that would change everything. The call came at 9 a.m. A polite voice explaining that Mrs. Moretti's testimony was requested regarding allegations of financial impropriety and coercion. Could she come to their office this afternoon? 2 p.m.? Aria agreed. She dressed in the conservative gray dress from Victoria's lunch. Professional, honest. Someone who had nothing to hide. Lucien appeared as she was leaving. Remember, he said quietly. The truth. Nothing more. Nothing less. What if the truth destroys us? Then we were always going to be destroyed. At least this way we go down honestly. The law office was in Midtown. Glass and steel and the kind of quiet that came from people paid to notice everything. 2 lawyers met her in a conference room, a man and woman in perfect suits with expressions of professional sympathy. Mrs. Moretti, thank you for coming. We know this must be difficult. Aria sat across from them. What do you want to know? They asked questions for 2 hours. How she met Lucien, why she married him, whether she felt coerced or threatened, whether money changed hands, whether she understood his business activities. Aria answered every question honestly. Yes, they had a contract marriage. Yes, Lucien paid her mother's medical bills. Yes, she knew what she was agreeing to. Yes, it was consensual. No, she wasn't afraid of him. No, she wasn't coerced. No, she didn't participate in any illegal activities. The lawyers exchanged glances. Mrs. Moretti, are you aware that admitting to a contract marriage could invalidate your legal union? I'm aware. And you're willing to testify to this publicly? If necessary. The woman lawyer leaned forward. Why? Why risk everything to protect a man who bought you like property? Aria met her eyes. Because he never lied to me. He told me exactly what this arrangement was. He kept every promise. He gave me choices when I had none, and because honesty matters more than self-preservation. Even if it destroys you both? Even then. The lawyers looked at each other again. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Moretti. We'll be in touch. Aria left the office feeling hollowed out. She'd just testified to everything that could destroy her marriage, her financial security, and possibly her freedom. But she'd told the truth. Her phone rang as she reached the street. Lucien. How did it go? I told them everything. Silence on the other end. Then, everything? The contract, the money, the arrangement, all of it. Good. Lucien's voice carried something that might have been relief. Come home. We need to talk. Back at the penthouse, Lucien waited in the living room. He looked like he hadn't slept. Papers spread across every surface. His laptop open to financial documents. Sit, he said. Aria sat. Lucien handed her a folder. This is everything Isabel has been planning. Her fake evidence, her financial backers, her timeline for destruction. Aria opened it. Inside, the same documents Isabel had shown her, but with annotations in red ink pointing out forgeries, photoshopped dates, fabricated transactions, lies built on lies. It's all fake? Aria's voice came out hoarse. Most of it. She used just enough truth to make the lies believable, but she made one critical mistake. Lucien pulled out another document. She claimed you were complicit in money laundering through your mother's medical expenses. But the money I used came from legitimate business accounts. Completely clean, traceable to legal sources. Then why did her evidence look so real? Because she's good at manipulation. It's how she survived 2 years as my fiancée. Lucien's expression darkened. But she's not as smart as she thinks. By admitting our arrangement is consensual, you destroyed her narrative. She can't claim coercion if you voluntarily testify otherwise. So what happens now? Now we wait. Isabel will realize her case is collapsing. She'll make a desperate move. And when she does, Lucien's smile was cold. We finished this. Aria stared at the papers spread between them. You used me. You knew she'd approach me. Knew she'd threaten me. You wanted her to try recruiting me so you could expose her. Yes, the admission hit like a slap. You put me through 48 hours of terror to set a trap. I put you through 48 hours of necessary testing to see if you'd betray me when pressured. You didn't. That tells me everything I needed to know. Lucien's eyes locked onto hers. You're stronger than Isabel, stronger than Marco's girlfriend, stronger than anyone I've ever brought into this world. And that makes you the most valuable asset I have. I'm not an asset, I'm a person. In my world, there's no difference. Aria stood. Then maybe your world is the problem. Maybe building everything on fear and control and testing people's loyalty through manipulation is why everyone you trust eventually destroys you. Where are you going? Away from you. I need to think. She walked toward her wing. Aria. She stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you, Lucien said quietly, for not betraying me, for telling the truth, for being stronger than I expected. You're welcome, and fuck you for testing me. She went to her room and locked the door. Then she called her mother. Caroline answered immediately. Sweetheart, is everything okay? You sound upset. Aria broke. She told her mother everything, the contract, the fake marriage, Lucien's past, Isabel's threats, the deposition, 48 hours of choosing between survival and soul. Caroline listened in silence. When Aria finished, her mother said quietly, Do you love him? The question stopped Aria's heart. What? Your husband, despite everything, despite the contract and the manipulation and the fear. Do you love him? Aria opened her mouth to say no, to say it was just an arrangement, to say emotions weren't involved. But the word wouldn't come. Because somewhere between galas and helicopter rides and watching Lucien destroy himself against punching bags, something had shifted. Because somewhere between galas and helicopter rides and watching Lucien destroy himself against punching bags, something had shifted. Something dangerous had taken root in her chest despite every warning, every clause, every rational reason to keep her heart locked away. I don't know, Aria whispered into the phone. I don't know anymore. Caroline's voice went soft. Oh, sweetheart, that's the worst answer you could give. Why? Because I don't know means yes. It means you're already falling and you're terrified to admit it. Her mother paused. Does he feel the same way? Aria thought about Lucien's hand on her back at the gala, the way he'd looked at her in the boxing gym, how his voice had cracked when he talked about Marco, the exhaustion in his eyes when he thanked her for not betraying him. I don't think he knows how to feel anything, Aria said. His mother trained him to see emotions as weapons. Love got his brother killed. Trust got him betrayed by his fiancée. He's built his entire life around avoiding exactly what I'm feeling right now. Then you have a choice to make. Walk away before it destroys you both, or stay and hope he learns to be human again before the contract ends. The contract has a clause. If either of us develops feelings, it terminates immediately. Caroline's sharp intake of breath was audible. He made falling in love a breach of contract? Yes. That's the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard. Aria's eyes burned. What do I do? What does your heart tell you? My heart tells me to run. My head tells me to stay, and I don't know which one is right anymore. They talked for another 20 minutes. Caroline shared stories about Aria's father, how he'd been terrified of commitment, how he'd loved them but couldn't handle the weight of it, how he'd left rather than drown in emotions he didn't understand. The parallel to Lucien was devastating. When Aria hung up, she sat in darkness and faced the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. She was falling in love with a man who would end their arrangement the moment he realized it. And he was starting to care about her in ways that terrified him, which meant they were both doomed. A knock on her door made her jump. Aria, Lucien's voice through wood. We need to talk, now. She opened the door. Lucien stood in the hallway looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. His tie was gone, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. What happened? Isabel just released everything to the press. He held up his phone. The screen showed a news website with a headline that made Aria's stomach drop. Mafia Boss. Lucien Moretti's fake marriage exposed. Wife testifies to contract arrangement. Oh God! Aria's voice barely functioned. It gets worse. Lucien scrolled down. The article quoted her deposition word for word. Every admission, every detail about their contract, every truth she'd told the lawyers now printed for the entire world to read. How did they? Isabel's lawyers leaked it. They're claiming you were coerced into giving false testimony to protect me, that the contract marriage proves I'm using you to hide criminal activity. Lucien's jaw clenched. The FBI just announced a formal investigation. They're freezing my assets, issuing subpoenas, coming after everything. Aria couldn't breathe. I destroyed us. No, you told the truth. Isabel weaponized it. He looked at her with something raw in his eyes. But there's more. Your mother's hospital just called. Federal agents showed up demanding access to her financial records. They're investigating whether her medical treatment constitutes money laundering. The world tilted sideways. They can't do that. She's dying. They can't. They can and they are. Isabel made sure of it. Lucien's hands clenched into fists. She's not trying to put me in prison anymore. She's trying to destroy everyone I care about, including you. The words hung between them. Including you. Aria stared at him. You care about me? Lucien's expression flickered. Don't do this right now. You just said, I know what I said. I didn't mean. He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. We don't have time for this. Federal agents will be here within the hour to execute search warrants. You need to leave. Leave? Get out of Manhattan, out of New York. Somewhere they can't find you while I handle this. He pulled a phone from his pocket, not his regular one, something that looked like a burner. This phone is clean, untraceable. Take it. I'll contact you when it's safe. I'm not running. You don't have a choice. If you're here when they arrive, they'll arrest you as an accomplice. Use your testimony as evidence of conspiracy. Put you in federal custody while they build their case. Then let them. I told the truth. I have nothing to hide. Lucien grabbed her shoulders. You think truth matters? You think honesty will protect you from prosecutors who need a conviction? They'll twist everything you said, make you look like a criminal who got caught, destroy your credibility until no one believes anything you say. Then what am I supposed to do? Hide? Disappear? Let you face this alone? Yes, exactly that. His grip tightened. Please, Aria. For once in your life, don't be brave, just survive. Aria looked into his dark eyes and saw something she'd never seen before. Fear. Not for himself. For her. Where would I go? She asked quietly. I have a place. Upstate. Off the grid. No one knows about it except my most trusted people. He pressed the burner phone into her hand. Elena will take you. She's waiting in the garage. Go. Now. What about you? I'm staying. I'm meeting the FBI with my lawyers. I'm facing this head on. His expression hardened. And then I'm going after Isabel with everything I have. She wanted war. She's about to understand what that actually means. Lucien? He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't planned. Just sudden desperate need crashing against every rule they'd built between them. His hands cupped her face. Her fingers clutched his shirt. The kiss tasted like fear and fury and all the emotions they'd been denying for months. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. That was, Aria started, a mistake. It was a mistake. But Lucien didn't let go of her face. Go, before I make worse ones. He released her and walked away without looking back. Aria stood in the hallway, lips still burning, heart hammering against her ribs. Then she grabbed her phone and ran for the elevator. Elena waited in the garage beside a nondescript sedan, the kind of car no one would notice. She looked grim. Mrs. Moretti, we need to leave. Now! Aria climbed into the passenger seat. Elena drove out of the garage like she was being chased. Maybe she was. They merged into Manhattan traffic and disappeared among thousands of other vehicles. Where are we going? Aria asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere Mr. Moretti prepared for emergencies exactly like this. Elena's hands were steady on the wheel, but her jaw was tight. He's been planning this for weeks, ever since Isabel first approached you. He knew this would happen? He knew Isabel would escalate. Knew she'd use whatever weapons she could find, including you. Elena glanced at her. He's protecting you the only way he knows how, by pushing you away before you get destroyed standing beside him. Aria's throat closed. Does he always push away people he cares about? Elena's expression softened fractionally. Always. It's how he survives. How he's survived since he was 17 years old, and his mother made him choose between family and love. She turned onto the highway heading north. But you're different. How? Because you didn't run when given the chance. You didn't betray him when pressured. You told the truth even when it could destroy you both. Elena's voice dropped. I've worked for Lucien Moretti for 8 years. I've never seen him care about anyone's safety more than his own. Until you. The words settled in Aria's chest like stones. They drove for 2 hours. Manhattan disappeared behind them. Suburbs gave way to rural nothing. Elena finally turned onto an unmarked dirt road that wound through dense forest. The house appeared suddenly, isolated, modern, built into the hillside like it was hiding. Solar panels on the roof. No visible neighbors. The kind of place that didn't exist on any map. Welcome to your safe house, Elena said. Full pantry. Generator backup. Satellite internet that can't be traced. Mr. Moretti owns this property through shell companies. Nobody can connect to him. They went inside. The house was smaller than the penthouse, but still nicer than anywhere Aria had lived before marrying Lucien. Clean lines, minimal furniture, everything designed for function over luxury. Elena handed her a set of keys. Lock everything. Don't answer the door for anyone except me. The burner phone Mr. Moretti gave you is your only communication. Don't use your regular phone. Don't contact anyone from your previous life. For how long? Until he says it's safe. Elena headed for the door. I need to get back to the city. He'll need support when the FBI arrives. Elena. Aria's voice stopped her. Is he going to be okay? Elena's expression was unreadable. I don't know. But if anyone can survive federal prosecutors and a vengeful ex-fiancé simultaneously, it's Lucien Moretti. She paused at the door. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Moretti. He'd never forgive himself if something happened to you. Then she was gone. Aria stood alone in the safe house, surrounded by silence and the growing certainty that everything was falling apart. She checked the burner phone. No messages. She turned on the satellite internet and immediately regretted it. The story was everywhere. Every news site, every social media platform, every gossip blog and financial publication. Mafia Boss's contract marriage exposed. Lucien Moretti under federal investigation. Wife admits to purchased arrangement. Photos of her and Lucien at the gala. Screenshots of legal documents. Quotes from anonymous sources. Definitely Isabel, claiming Aria was either a victim of coercion or a willing participant in organized crime. Her phone, her real phone, the one Elena told her not to use, started buzzing with unknown numbers. Journalists, producers wanting interviews, lawyers offering representation, vultures circling. Aria turned it off and threw it across the room. Then she sat on the expensive couch in the hidden house and waited for the world to end. The burner phone rang at midnight. Aria grabbed it. Hello? It's me. Lucien's voice sounded exhausted. Are you safe? Yes, I'm at the house. What happened? FBI executed search warrants on the penthouse, my offices, and every property connected to Moretti Enterprises. They spent 6 hours going through files, took computers, documents, hard drives, everything. He paused. They arrested my CFO, 3 of my lawyers, anyone they could connect to financial operations. What about you? I'm not arrested, yet. My legal team is negotiating terms for voluntary testimony. But it's bad, Aria. They have years of evidence, transactions they can't explain, patterns that look exactly like what they're accusing me of. Is it true? The money laundering? The criminal enterprise? Silence on the other end. Some of it, Lucien admitted finally. Not all. But enough that conviction is possible if they build the right case. Aria's stomach turned. So Isabel was telling the truth. Isabel was telling carefully selected truths designed to destroy me. Yes, I run businesses that operate in legal gray areas. Yes, some of my money comes from sources prosecutors would question. But I'm not the monster she's painting. I don't traffic people. I don't push drugs. I don't hurt innocents. Just guilty people? Yes, just people who operate in the same world I do. People who understand the rules. His voice went quiet. Does that make me a criminal in your eyes? Aria thought about her mother's medical bills, about the eviction notice that had vanished, about the luxury and security she'd experienced for the past 3 months. I don't know what it makes you, but I know you kept every promise to me, and I know you didn't have to protect me when this all exploded. Yes, I did. The words came out fierce. You're my wife. Contract or not, that means something. Does it? Or am I just another asset you're protecting because losing me looks bad? Don't, Lucien's voice cracked. Don't do this right now. I can't. The phone went silent. Lucien? Aria pressed it to her ear. Lucien, are you there? Nothing. Then the line went dead. Aria tried calling back. It went straight to a message, number disconnected. Her heart hammered. She paced the safe house, mind racing. Something was wrong. The way his voice had cut off, the sudden disconnection, that wasn't normal. She turned on the satellite internet and searched for news. The headline appeared immediately. Breaking. Lucien Moretti hospitalized after apparent collapse. Sources cite exhaustion and possible heart attack. Aria's vision blurred. The article said Lucien had collapsed during FBI questioning. Paramedics had been called. He'd been transported to an undisclosed hospital. His condition was unknown. She grabbed her real phone, turned it on despite Elena's warnings, called the one person who might know something. Victoria Moretti answered on the first ring. Aria, I was wondering when you'd call. Where is he? What hospital? Is he alive? Calm down. He's alive, barely. Victoria's voice was ice. Mount Sinai, private cardiac wing. Same place your mother is being treated, ironically. What happened? Stress. Exhaustion. Years of carrying this empire on his back finally caught up with him. Victoria paused. Or Isabel poisoned him. We're running tests. Aria's blood froze. Poisoned? She was at the FBI office when he collapsed. Had access to his water, his coffee. It wouldn't be the first time she's tried to kill someone who threatened her plans. Victoria's voice carried fury, barely controlled. If she did this, I will destroy her so thoroughly she'll beg for death before I'm finished. I need to see him. Absolutely not. The FBI has agents stationed outside his room. They're waiting for him to wake up so they can continue questioning. If you show up, they'll arrest you immediately. I don't care. He's dying and I'm hiding in the woods like a coward. You're surviving, like he wants you to. Coming back to Manhattan now would be the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Victoria's tone sharpened. Listen to me very carefully, Aria. My son married you to protect you from this world. Don't waste his sacrifice by throwing yourself into federal custody out of misplaced loyalty. It's not misplaced. Aria stopped. You what? Victoria's voice went quiet. Say it. Nothing. You love him. It wasn't a question. You fell in love with him despite the contract, despite every warning, despite knowing exactly what he is. Aria's eyes burned. Does it matter? The contract terminates if either of us develops feelings. If I admit it, I lose everything. My mother's medical care, my financial security, all of it. The contract is meaningless now. Federal prosecutors will invalidate it regardless. Your marriage will be dissolved as part of the criminal investigation. Victoria's words hit like bullets. But answer my question. Do you love my son? Aria looked around the safe house, at the luxury purchased with blood money, at the life she'd been living for 3 months, at the $2 million ring she'd left in the penthouse. Yes, she whispered. I love him. Then prove it. How? By being smarter than Isabel, by fighting for him the way he fought for you, by refusing to let federal prosecutors and vindictive ex-fiancés destroy what you've built together. Victoria's voice carried steel. I'm sending you something. Information Isabel doesn't know we have. Evidence that will bury her completely. Use it. What kind of evidence? The kind that proves she's been committing fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder for the past 6 years. The kind that makes her federal witness status irrelevant because she's a bigger criminal than anyone she's testifying against. Victoria paused. Check your email. The secure one Lucien set up for you. Password is your mother's birthday. The line went dead. Aria ran to the laptop, opened the secure email account she didn't know existed. The password worked. One email waited. From Victoria. Subject line, burn it all down. Inside, hundreds of documents, financial records showing Isabel embezzling from her family's charitable foundation, communication logs proving she'd hired someone to poison a business rival 3 years ago, testimony from witnesses she'd paid to lie, evidence of bribes to federal investigators. And at the bottom, a video file. Aria clicked it. The video showed Isabel sitting in what looked like a lawyer's office, speaking to someone off camera. I don't care if Aria Bennett is innocent. I need her implicated. I need prosecutors to see her as Lucien's accomplice. If that means fabricating evidence, do it. If that means falsifying her deposition testimony, do it. Whatever it takes to destroy them both. The camera angle shifted. The person Isabel was talking to came into view, one of the lawyers who'd taken Aria's deposition. Her lawyer, working for Isabel the entire time. Aria's hands shook. This was it. The evidence that would destroy Isabel completely, that would prove she'd fabricated her entire case, that would expose her as the criminal she'd been accusing Lucien of being. But using it meant going public, meant stepping out of hiding, meant becoming a target for federal investigation, media scrutiny, and Isabel's inevitable retaliation. Aria looked at the documents spread across the screen. Then she looked at the burner phone Lucien had given her. He told her to stay hidden, stay safe, survive. But surviving without him felt like drowning anyway. She made her choice. Aria downloaded everything to a secure flash drive. Then she called Elena. Mrs. Moretti, you shouldn't be using this number. I need you to pick me up, now. I'm going back to Manhattan. That's suicide. The FBI is looking for you. Isabel has people watching every entry point. You'll be arrested before you reach the city limits. Then I'll be arrested. But I'm not hiding anymore. Aria's voice steadied. Lucien is in the hospital because of me. Because I gave testimony that Isabel weaponized. Because I told the truth and she turned it into a weapon. I'm not going to let him pay for my honesty while I hide in the woods. Elena was quiet for a moment. He'll be furious. He'll be alive. That's all that matters. You really love him, wonder in Elena's voice. You love him enough to sacrifice everything. Yes. Then I'm not picking you up. I'm sending someone better. Elena's tone shifted. Someone who can get you into Manhattan without being detected. Someone who can get you access to places even the FBI can't reach. Who? Victoria Moretti. She's been waiting for you to be brave enough to fight back. Congratulations. You just passed her final test.
But shit.
Victoria arrived 3 hours later in a helicopter that looked like it belonged to heads of state. She climbed out wearing a suit that probably cost more than cars, looking like she was ready for war. Aria Bennett Moretti, my daughter-in-law who's finally acting like family. Victoria's smile was sharp. Get in. We have work to do. They flew back to Manhattan as dawn broke over the city. Victoria spent the flight reviewing Aria's evidence with clinical precision. This is good. Better than good. This buries Isabel so deep she'll never see sunlight again. Victoria's eyes gleamed. But releasing it publicly will make you a target. Federal prosecutors will question how you obtained it. Isabel's family will come after you for destroying their daughter. You'll never be safe again. I don't care about safe. I care about keeping Lucien alive. Even if it costs you everything, your freedom, your mother's medical care, your life as you know it, Aria met Victoria's eyes. Yes. Victoria studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. You really are stronger than I thought. Lucien chose well, even if he was too stupid to realize it at the time. They landed on a private helipad near Mount Sinai. Victoria moved through the hospital like she owned it, which she probably did. Security stepped aside. Doctors nodded respectfully. She was untouchable. Lucien's room was in the cardiac intensive care unit. FBI agents stood outside the door. They straightened when Victoria approached. Mrs. Moretti? The lead agent's voice was respectful but firm. Your son is under federal investigation. Visitors are restricted. I'm not visiting. I'm delivering legal documents to his counsel. Victoria handed him a folder. You're welcome to review them. They're motions to dismiss based on prosecutorial misconduct. The agent flipped through the folder. His expression darkened. These allegations are serious. Yes, they are. And they're all documented with evidence, which I'm releasing to the media in approximately... Victoria checked her watch. 6 minutes. Unless you'd like to step aside and let me see my son before his entire case gets thrown out for witness tampering. The agents exchanged glances. They stepped aside. Victoria walked into the room. Aria followed. Lucien lay in the hospital bed looking like death. Pale, thin. Connected to machines that beeped his fragile heartbeat. An IV dripped clear liquid into his arm. His eyes were closed, but he was breathing. Aria's knees went weak. Victoria walked to his bedside and laid a hand on his shoulder. Lucien, wake up. You have a visitor. Lucien's eyes opened slowly, unfocused. He looked at his mother, then past her to where Aria stood frozen in the doorway. His expression flickered, confusion, shock, then fury. What is she doing here? His voice came out hoarse. I told you to keep her safe. She refused to stay hidden. She came back to save you, like an idiot. Victoria stepped back. I'll give you 5 minutes. Then we're holding a press conference that will destroy Isabelle Marchand completely. Try not to die before then. It would be inconvenient. She walked out, closing the door behind her. Aria and Lucien stared at each other across medical equipment and all the things they'd never said. You're supposed to be upstate, Lucien's voice cracked. Safe. Away from all this. I couldn't stay away, not while you were dying. I'm not dying. I'm just... He gestured weakly at the machines. Exhausted. They think Isabel poisoned me, but they can't prove it. Victoria sent me evidence. Everything we need to destroy her. I'm going public with it. Aria checked the time. 4 minutes. Lucien tried to sit up. Machines beeped in protest. No, absolutely not. That makes you a target. That puts you in danger. I'm already in danger. I've been in danger since I walked into that gala 3 months ago. Aria moved closer to the bed. You protected me. You pushed me away to keep me safe. Now it's my turn. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air like gunshots. Lucien went completely still. What did you say? I love you. Aria's voice shook but held. I know the contract says feelings terminate our arrangement. I know you don't want emotional attachment. I know this breaks every rule we agreed to, but I'm done lying. I'm done pretending. I love you, Lucien Moretti, and I'm going to fight for you even if you never feel the same way. Lucien stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. You can't, he said finally. You can't love me. The contract? Fuck the contract. Federal prosecutors already invalidated it. Our marriage is over regardless. Aria stepped closer. But that doesn't change how I feel. Doesn't change the fact that I'd rather face prison beside you than hide in safety without you. You don't know what you're saying. You're scared. I'm telling you the truth. The same truth I told the FBI. The same truth that destroyed us both. Her eyes burned. I love you. And I think you love me too. And that terrifies you more than federal prosecutors or vengeful ex-fiancés or anything else in your world. Lucien's jaw clenched. Love gets people killed. So does hiding from it. Look at you. You pushed everyone away to stay safe, and you still ended up in a hospital bed poisoned by someone you thought you'd neutralized years ago. Aria reached for his hand. Maybe safety isn't the goal. Maybe surviving isn't enough. Maybe living actually matters. He pulled his hand away. Don't. Please don't make me. The door burst open. Victoria stood there looking grim. We have a problem. Isabel just held her own press conference. She's claiming you're working together. That Aria is helping you fabricate evidence against her. That everything we're about to release is a desperate attempt to avoid prosecution. Aria's stomach dropped. She knew. She knew we'd come after her. Of course she knew. She's been planning this for months. Victoria's expression hardened. We need to release our evidence now, before her narrative takes hold, before federal prosecutors believe her version. Do it, Lucien said from the bed. His voice was stronger now, focused. Release everything. Hold nothing back. Victoria nodded and disappeared. Aria turned back to Lucien. I need to go. I need to be there when we expose her. Need to face the media and tell them the truth. Aria, I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what I'm doing. She met his eyes. You can hate me for loving you. You can end our contract the moment you're out of this hospital, but you can't stop me from fighting for you. That's my choice, not yours. She walked toward the door. I don't hate you. Lucien's voice stopped her. Aria turned back. He was sitting up now, ignoring the machine's protests, looking at her with something raw and terrified in his eyes. I don't hate you for loving me, he said quietly. I hate myself for not knowing how to love you back, for being too broken to give you what you deserve, for turning you into collateral damage in a war I started years before we met. Then learn, Aria's voice cracked. Learn how to be human again. Learn how to let someone care about you without pushing them away. Learn how to fight for something other than survival. What if I can't? What if I'm too damaged to be anything except the monster everyone says I am? Then I'll love the monster, and maybe that'll be enough to save us both. She left before he could respond. Outside, Victoria waited with a team of lawyers and a media coordinator who looked like they'd prepared for war. Ready? Victoria asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They took the elevator down to a conference room the hospital had prepared. Media waited outside. Cameras, reporters, producers, all hungry for blood. Victoria handed Aria a folder. Your evidence, your testimony, your moment. Aria took it with shaking hands. Then she walked into the conference room and faced the cameras. My name is Aria Bennett Moretti. 3 months ago, I signed a contract with Lucien Moretti to become his wife in exchange for financial support for my dying mother. Today, I'm here to tell you the truth about that contract, about our marriage, and about the woman who's been trying to destroy us both. She opened the folder and began reading. Evidence of Isabel's embezzlement, proof of her conspiracy to commit murder, documentation of her attempts to fabricate testimony and manipulate federal investigations. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Lawyers for Isabel's family started making calls. And somewhere in the hospital above them, Lucien Moretti watched on television as his contract wife declared war on the woman who'd tried to destroy them both. For love, for truth, for the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could survive this together. The press conference lasted 2 hours. Aria answered every question, admitted to the contract marriage, explained the circumstances, showed evidence of Isabel's crimes, stood there while reporters tore her apart and lawyers threatened lawsuits, and the world decided whether she was victim or villain. When it finally ended, Victoria pulled her aside. "You did well. Better than most people would have under that scrutiny." Victoria's expression was unreadable. Isabel's lawyers are already filing motions. Her family is calling in political favors. This fight is far from over. "I know. But you changed the narrative. Now she's the one defending herself instead of attacking. That's significant." Victoria paused. "The FBI wants to interview you, formally, about everything." "When?" "Tomorrow. They're giving you tonight to prepare." Victoria's eyes softened fractionally. "My son is asking for you." Aria's heart jumped. "Is he okay? Physically? He'll recover? Emotionally?" Victoria's smile was sad. "That depends entirely on whether he's brave enough to admit what he's feeling, and Lucien has never been brave about emotions." Aria went back upstairs. Lucien's room was empty except for him. The FBI agents were gone, probably reassigned after Victoria's lawyers filed their motions. He sat up in bed, looking slightly less like death, watching her enter with an expression she couldn't read. "You declared war on Isabelle Marchand in front of the entire world," he said. "Yes." "You admitted to our contract marriage, exposed everything, made yourself a target for every prosecutor and journalist in the country." "Yes." "Why?" Aria moved closer to his bed. "Because you were worth it. Because love isn't weakness like your mother taught you. Because I'd rather fight beside you and lose than hide alone and survive." Lucien stared at her. "You're insane." "Probably. I married a mafia boss after knowing him for 24 hours. Sanity was never my strong suit." Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. Then it died. "The contract terminates the moment either of us develops feelings," he said quietly. "You just admitted on national television that you love me. That means our arrangement is over, legally, financially, completely." "I know." "Which means your mother's medical coverage ends, your financial support ends, everything I promised you ends." Aria's throat tightened. "I know that too. And you did it anyway." "Yes." Lucien closed his eyes. "You're the bravest person I've ever met, and the most foolish. Can't I be both?" He opened his eyes and looked at her with something that made her chest ache. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to love someone without it becoming a weapon they use to destroy me. Marco loved someone, and it got him killed. I loved my father, and he betrayed my mother. Every time I've cared about anything, it's been used against me. I'm not them. I know. That's what terrifies me. You're honest. You're loyal. You sacrificed everything to protect me, which means when you inevitably leave or die or get destroyed by my world, it's going to hurt worse than anything I've ever felt." Aria sat on the edge of his bed. "What if I don't leave? What if I don't die? What if I'm the person who stays even when it's hard?" "Nobody stays. Everyone leaves eventually. Then I'll be the first one who doesn't." She reached for his hand. This time, he didn't pull away. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to suddenly become someone you're not. I'm just asking you to try, to let me in, to stop pushing away the one person who's fighting to stay beside you." Lucien's hand tightened around hers. "The FBI is going to come after you tomorrow. They're going to question everything you said, try to poke holes in your testimony, use your admission of contract marriage as evidence of conspiracy. Let them. They could charge you with crimes, put you in prison. Then you'll visit me." "This isn't funny. I'm not laughing." Aria squeezed his hand. "I'm telling you that I chose this. I chose you. I chose us. Whatever happens next, we face it together. No more running, no more hiding, no more pushing each other away out of fear." Lucien pulled her closer. She ended up half sitting on the hospital bed, their faces inches apart, his hand still gripping hers like a lifeline. If I do this, he said quietly, if I try to be what you need, and I fail, and I hurt you, and I destroy what we have because I don't know how to be human, then we'll figure it out together. That's what people who love each other do. I don't know if I love you. The admission came out broken. I don't know if I'm capable of it, or if what I'm feeling is love, or just fear of losing the one person who hasn't betrayed me yet. That's okay. You don't have to know right now. You just have to be willing to try. Lucien stared at her for a long moment. Then he kissed her. This time it wasn't desperate or rushed. It was careful, tentative, like he was learning a language he'd never been taught. His hand cupped her face. Her fingers tangled in his hair. The kiss tasted like fear and hope, and the possibility that maybe broken people could learn to be whole again. When they broke apart, Lucien pressed his forehead against hers. The contract is terminated, he whispered. Our legal marriage is over, which means technically you're not my wife anymore. Aria's heart clenched. I know. So if I asked you to marry me again, for real this time, no contracts, no conditions, no rules except choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, what would you say? Aria pulled back to look at him. Are you asking? I don't have a ring. I'm in a hospital bed. I might be going to federal prison. I have enemies who want me dead and an ex-fiancé who just tried to poison me. I'm probably the worst marriage prospect in human history. Is that a yes? Lucien's smile was small but real. Yes, I'm asking, marry me, Aria Bennett. Not because I'm paying you, not because you need me, but because somehow, against every rule I built to protect myself, I need you. Aria kissed him again, softer this time. Yes, I'll marry you. For real this time. Even though the FBI might arrest me tomorrow? Especially then. Someone needs to bring you cigarettes in prison. I don't smoke. Then I'll bring you books or commissary snacks, whatever convicted mafia bosses need. Lucien laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty, like he hadn't used it in years, but it was real. Then his expression sobered. Isabel isn't going to stop. She'll fight the evidence, use her family's connections, try to discredit you and destroy everything we just built. Let her try. She's dangerous, Aria. She's already tried to kill me once. She won't hesitate to hurt you if she thinks it'll break me. Then we break her first. Aria's voice hardened. Together. No more fighting alone. No more protecting each other by pushing away. We face this as partners. Partners. Lucien tested the word. I've never had a partner, just assets and liabilities. Well, now you have me, and I'm definitely a liability. Aria smiled. But I'm your liability, and you're stuck with me. I can live with that. They sat together in the hospital room as night fell over Manhattan. Outside, the city glittered with lights and lives and people who had no idea that somewhere in a cardiac ward, a mafia boss and a waitress were rebuilding their world from ashes. Aria's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. FBI moved up your interview. They want you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring lawyers, bring evidence, bring courage. You're going to need all three. Aria showed Lucien the message. His expression went grim. They're accelerating, trying to get your testimony before Isabel's lawyers can prepare a counter-narrative. What should I do? Tell them the truth? Again. Every time. Until they're forced to believe you. He squeezed her hand. And remember that I'll be waiting when you're done. No matter what happens, no matter what they accuse you of. I'll be here. Promise? I promise. Aria leaned against him, careful of the IV and monitors. They sat in silence, listening to machines beep and the city breathe outside. Tomorrow, she'd face federal prosecutors. Tomorrow, Isabel would fight back with everything she had. Tomorrow, the war would continue. But tonight, for the first time in months, Aria wasn't afraid, because she wasn't alone anymore, and neither was he. The King of Blackwater had finally found someone worth more than his empire, and she'd chosen him anyway, despite the contracts, despite the danger, despite everything that should have kept them apart. Love had become their greatest weapon, and their most terrifying vulnerability. Now they just had to survive long enough to figure out which one would destroy them first. The FBI field office in Lower Manhattan looked exactly like every government building Aria had ever imagined. Fluorescent lights that turned everyone gray, linoleum floors that echoed footsteps like accusations, and the kind of silence that came from people professionally trained to extract truth from lies. Aria sat in a conference room at 7:55 a.m., flanked by two lawyers Victoria had hired. Expensive suits, perfect briefcases, expressions that revealed nothing. They'd spent the past hour drilling her on what to say, what not to say, and how to survive federal interrogation without accidentally confessing to crimes she hadn't committed. "Remember," the lead lawyer said quietly, "answer only what they ask. Don't volunteer information. Don't get emotional. And if anything feels like a trap, look at me before answering." Aria nodded. Her hands were steady on the table, but her heart hammered against her ribs. She wore the conservative gray dress from her first meeting with Victoria, armor disguised as respectability. The door opened. Two federal prosecutors walked in, followed by an FBI agent who looked like he'd spent decades perfecting intimidation. They sat across from Aria and her lawyers, spreading folders and recording equipment across the table with practiced efficiency. "Mrs. Moretti, thank you for coming voluntarily." The lead prosecutor was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a voice that could cut glass. "I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Catherine Walsh. This is AUSA Marcus Chen and Special Agent Robert Kellerman. We're here to discuss your relationship with Lucien Moretti and the nature of your marriage." "I understand. Before we begin, I want to make something very clear. Lying to federal investigators is a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Do you understand that?" "Yes." Walsh activated the recording device. "For the record, this is an interview with Aria Bennett Moretti regarding ongoing investigations into organized criminal activity. Mrs. Moretti, please state your full name and date of birth." Aria complied. Then the interrogation began. They asked about the gala, about Lucien's offer, about the contract, about every dollar that had changed hands and every promise that had been made. They showed her financial records, transaction logs, and documentation that made her mother's medical payments look exactly like money laundering. Aria answered every question honestly. Yes, she'd signed a contract marriage. Yes, Lucien had paid her mother's medical bills. Yes, she'd known it was a business arrangement. No, she hadn't been coerced. No, she didn't participate in criminal activity. No, she didn't have knowledge of Lucien's business operations beyond what he'd told her. Walsh leaned forward. "You expect us to believe that Lucien Moretti, a man under federal investigation for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy, married you purely to avoid a family-arranged engagement? That there was no other motive?" "That's what he told me. That's what the contract stated." "And you believed him?" "I had no reason not to. He was honest about everything else." "Honest?" Chen's voice dripped skepticism. "A mob boss was honest with you." "Yes." "Mrs. Moretti, we have evidence that your husband has been laundering money through charitable organizations, shell companies, and personal transactions for over a decade. We have witnesses placing him at meetings discussing illegal activities. We have financial records showing patterns of fraud that would make him one of the most successful criminals in New York history." Walsh's eyes narrowed. "And you're telling us you knew nothing about any of this?" "I'm telling you, I'm a waitress from Brooklyn who married him to save my dying mother. Whatever he did before we met isn't something I participated in or knew about. But you benefited from it. Your mother's medical care, your housing, your monthly stipend, all funded by money we can trace directly to illegal sources." Aria's lawyer interjected. "Unless you can prove my client knew the money was illegally obtained, receiving it isn't a crime. Spouses aren't required to investigate their partner's income sources." "Spouses in legitimate marriages aren't," Walsh shot back. "But Mrs. Moretti has already admitted her marriage was a contractual arrangement, which means the spousal immunity protections don't apply." The room went cold. Aria's stomach dropped. She'd walked directly into the trap they'd been building since the interrogation started. Her lawyer's jaw clenched. "My client's marriage status is being contested by your office. Until that's legally resolved, you can't use her contractual admission to remove spousal protections." "We can and we are." Walsh pulled out another document. "This is a motion to invalidate the Moretti marriage based on fraud. We're filing it today, which means Mrs. Moretti's testimony is no longer protected, and anything she tells us can and will be used against her husband." Aria looked at her lawyers. They exchanged glances that told her everything. The FBI had been planning this from the beginning. Get her to admit to the contract marriage. Use that admission to strip away legal protections. Force her to choose between testifying against Lucien or facing prosecution herself. I need to speak with my lawyers, Aria said quietly. Privately. Walsh smiled without warmth. Of course, take your time. They left the room. The moment the door closed, Aria's lead lawyer turned to her. They're going to offer you immunity. Testify against Lucien and they'll drop any charges against you. Refuse, and they'll charge you with conspiracy, money laundering, and obstruction. How long do I have? Minutes. Maybe an hour if we're lucky. He leaned forward. Listen to me very carefully, Mrs. Moretti. I've been practicing law for 30 years. I've seen hundreds of these cases. The FBI doesn't bluff. If you refuse to cooperate, they will destroy you. They'll freeze your assets, arrest you, hold you in federal custody while they build their case. Your mother's medical care will stop. You'll spend the next decade in prison. And Lucien Moretti will still be convicted because they have enough evidence to bury him without your testimony. So you're saying I should betray him? I'm saying you should save yourself, because he would do the same thing in your position. Aria thought about Lucien in the hospital bed, about his confession that he didn't know how to love, about his promise to wait for her no matter what happened. No, she said, he wouldn't, not anymore. Mrs. Moretti, I'm not testifying against him. I don't care what they threaten me with. I'm not doing it. Her lawyers stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You're signing your own prison sentence, the second lawyer said. You understand that? I understand that some things matter more than freedom, and I'm not going to destroy the man I love just to save myself. Aria stood. Tell them I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment rights. I'm not answering any more questions without a formal immunity agreement that protects both me and Lucien. They'll never give you that. Then I guess we're done here. Aria walked to the door. Her hand shook as she reached for the handle, but she forced it steady. She opened the door and found Walsh, Chen, and Kellerman waiting in the hallway. Mrs. Moretti, have you made a decision? Yes. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. I won't be answering any further questions without full immunity for both myself and my husband. Walsh's expression hardened. That's not how this works. You don't get to negotiate immunity for someone else. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss. We can arrest you right now, material witness, hold you in custody until you decide to cooperate. Then do it. But I'm not betraying my husband, not for immunity, not for my freedom, not for anything you can offer me. Silence stretched like broken glass. Then Walsh smiled. It wasn't pleasant. You really love him, enough to go to prison protecting a man who kills people for a living. Yes. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the most pathetic. I haven't decided which yet. Walsh gestured to Kellerman. Let her go, for now. But Mrs. Moretti, understand something. We will convict your husband, with or without your testimony. And when we do, we'll come back for you. And next time, there won't be any negotiations. Aria walked past them without responding. Her lawyers caught up with her in the elevator. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. Aria's hands finally started shaking. What happens now? Now we prepare for war. The FBI will file charges against Lucien within days. They'll try to flip his associates. Build a case so overwhelming that even the best lawyers can't save him. And they'll keep pressuring you to testify until they find something that breaks you. I won't break. Everyone breaks eventually, Mrs. Moretti. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point. Outside the federal building, media waited like vultures. Cameras, reporters, questions shouted from every direction. Aria's lawyers flanked her, pushing through the crowd toward a waiting car. Mrs. Moretti, did you testify against your husband? Are you cooperating with federal investigators? Do you still claim to love a man accused of murder? Aria kept walking, got in the car. The door closed and the noise cut off like someone had severed a nerve. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Well done. You didn't betray him. Now comes the hard part. Surviving what happens next. Meet me at the hospital. We have decisions to make. V. Lucien had been moved to a private room by the time Aria arrived. No more ICU, no more machines beeping his fragile heartbeat. He sat in a chair by the window, wearing hospital-issue clothing and looking like he'd aged a decade in 24 hours. Victoria stood beside him, and between them sat someone Aria didn't recognize. A man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of face that had seen everything and judged it all insufficient. Aria, this is Martin Hendricks, my lawyer, the one who's going to keep my son out of federal prison. Victoria gestured to a chair. Sit. We have much to discuss. Aria sat. Lucien watched her with an expression she couldn't read. How did it go? He asked quietly. They tried to make me testify against you, offered immunity, threatened prosecution. I refused. Something flickered in his eyes. You should have taken the deal. No, I shouldn't have, and I didn't. Aria looked at Martin. What's our legal situation? Martin opened a briefcase and pulled out documents that made Aria's legal troubles look like parking tickets. Federal prosecutors are filing RICO charges against Mr. Moretti, racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, wire fraud, and 3 counts of murder conspiracy based on witness testimony from associates who've agreed to cooperate. Aria's blood froze. Murder? Alleged murder. The witnesses claim Lucien ordered hits on business rivals. We're arguing the witnesses are unreliable, paid informants with axes to grind. But prosecutors have enough corroborating evidence to make the charges stick if they present them properly to a jury. How long would he serve if convicted? Life. No parole. Martin's voice stayed clinical. However, we have leverage. Evidence that the lead prosecutor, Catherine Walsh, has been coordinating with Isabelle Marchand, sharing case information, providing advance warning about grand jury proceedings, essentially building her case with Isabelle's input and fabricated evidence. Victoria smiled coldly. Prosecutorial misconduct. If we can prove it, the entire case gets thrown out. Every charge, every witness, everything. Can we prove it? Aria asked. That depends on whether Isabelle is stupid enough to have documented her communications with Walsh. Martin pulled out another folder. We have phone records showing multiple calls between them. We have emails that suggest coordination. But we need something definitive, something that proves Walsh knew she was building a case on manufactured evidence. Lucien spoke for the first time. Isabelle's too smart to leave that kind of trail. She's been planning this for months, maybe years. She won't have made it easy. No, but she's also arrogant. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else. That arrogance makes people sloppy. Victoria's eyes gleamed. And I know exactly how to exploit it. How? Aria asked. We give her what she wants. A meeting, face to face. She thinks she's won. She thinks Lucien is going to prison and you're going to federal custody. She'll want to gloat, to see you both broken. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. And while she's gloating, we record every word. Get her to admit she fabricated evidence, that she coordinated with Walsh, that she's been manipulating this entire investigation. Lucien shook his head. She'll never admit to that. Not on record. She will if she thinks the recording is for her benefit, if she thinks she's creating evidence to use against you. Victoria pulled out a small device. We tell her we want to negotiate. Offer her something valuable in exchange for dropping the charges. Make her believe she has leverage. And while she's explaining exactly how she destroyed you, we capture everything. That's entrapment, Martin said. Won't hold up in court. It doesn't have to hold up in court. It just has to be damaging enough to force Walsh to drop charges rather than face her own investigation. Victoria looked at Lucien. Your choice. We can fight this in court for the next 2 years and hope a jury believes us. Or we can end this now by making Isabelle destroy herself. Lucien stared out the window at Manhattan spread below. The city he'd controlled through fear and violence. The empire he'd built on ruthlessness and careful calculation. All of it hanging by threads because he'd fallen in love with someone who made him human again. Set up the meeting, he said finally, but I do it alone. Aria stays out of this. No. Aria's voice cut through the room. We do this together. That's the deal. Aria, you promised. No more fighting alone. No more protecting each other by pushing away. We're partners, which means I'm there when you face her. Lucien's jaw clenched. She'll use you against me. Try to break me by threatening you. Let her try. I'm not afraid of Isabelle Marchand. You should be. She's already tried to kill me. She won't hesitate to hurt you if she thinks it serves her purpose. Then we make sure she doesn't get the chance. Aria looked at Victoria. When and where? Victoria checked her phone. I'll arrange it for tomorrow night. Neutral location, security on standby, recording equipment hidden. We get her talking, get what we need, and end this before the FBI files formal charges. And if it doesn't work, Aria asked, if she doesn't confess, then Lucien goes to trial, and we hope 12 strangers believe our version of events more than federal prosecutors believe theirs. Martin started packing his briefcase. But Mrs. Moretti, you should know something. If Mr. Moretti is convicted, prosecutors will come after you next. They'll argue you were a knowing participant, use your contract marriage as evidence of conspiracy. You'll face the same charges he does. So we both go to prison, or neither of us does. Essentially, yes. Aria looked at Lucien. He stared back at her with something dark and desperate in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I'm sorry loving me means facing federal prosecution. I'm sorry. Aria crossed to him and kissed him. Hard, desperate. A kiss that tasted like fear and defiance and the stubborn refusal to let the world destroy what they'd built. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead against his. Stop apologizing for being worth loving and start focusing on how we survived this together. Lucien's hand came up to cup her face. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. Victoria cleared her throat. Touching, truly. But we have work to do. Aria, you'll need to prepare for tomorrow. Learn how to draw Isabel out. Make her comfortable enough to confess. Think you can do that? Aria pulled back from Lucien. Yes. Good. Because if this fails, we lose everything. My son goes to prison, you go to prison, and Isabel Marchand walks away having destroyed the people who dared to stand against her. Victoria's expression hardened. That's not an outcome I'm willing to accept. The meeting was set for a private dining room in a restaurant so exclusive it made the plaza look accessible. Neutral ground, public enough to be safe, private enough for honest conversation. Aria spent the day preparing. Victoria coached her on how to manipulate Isabel's ego, how to ask questions that sounded innocent but extracted confessions, how to play weak and desperate while recording everything. Remember, Victoria said as they practiced, Isabel thinks she's won. Use that. Make her believe you're begging for mercy. Get her talking about how she orchestrated everything. The more details she provides, the better our evidence. What if she suspects we're recording? She will. She's too smart not to. But her arrogance will override her caution. She'll want to hurt you, want you to know exactly how thoroughly she destroyed your life. That desire will make her careless. By evening, Aria felt ready. As ready as anyone could be walking into a trap disguised as negotiation. Lucien was being discharged from the hospital. He looked better, color back in his face, strength returning to his movements. But his eyes still carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting for too long. They dressed for war. Lucien in a suit that probably cost more than cars. Aria in a dress that screamed, desperate wife willing to negotiate. They looked like the perfect couple. Polished, controlled, hiding knives behind practiced smiles. The restaurant was everything Victoria had promised. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths. The kind of quiet that came from people too wealthy to raise their voices. They were led to a private room overlooking the city. Isabel was already waiting. She sat at the head of the table wearing red silk and diamonds, looking like she'd dressed for victory. Her smile when they entered was poison wrapped in courtesy. Lucien, Aria, how kind of you to accept my invitation. She gestured to chairs across from her. Please, sit. We have so much to discuss. They sat. Lucien's hand found Aria's under the table, grounding, steadying. You wanted this meeting, Lucien said. So talk. Direct as always. I've missed that about you. Isabel sipped wine that probably cost more than Aria's monthly rent used to be. I wanted to see you both before the FBI files formal charges. Wanted to offer you one final opportunity to save yourselves. By testifying against me, Lucien said flatly. By telling the truth. About your criminal enterprise. About the money laundering. About the murders you've ordered over the years. Isabel's eyes gleamed. The truth shall set you free. Isn't that what they say? The truth according to you, which is fabricated evidence and paid witnesses. Prove it. Isabel leaned forward. You can't, because I've been very careful. Every piece of evidence is real, every witness credible, every document authentic. You're going to prison, Lucien. The only question is whether Aria goes with you. Aria squeezed Lucien's hand. Time to play her role. What do you want from us? Her voice came out smaller than she'd practiced. Desperate. Exactly what Isabel would expect. From you? Nothing. You're collateral damage, a waitress who got caught in machinery too complex for her to understand. Isabel's smile softened into something that looked almost like pity. But I can help you. If you're willing to help me. How? Testify. Not about Lucien's crimes. You don't know enough to be useful there, but about your contract marriage. How he coerced you, threatened you, made you complicit in money laundering through your mother's medical bills. Isabel pulled out a document. Sign this affidavit. Swear you were a victim, and I'll make sure prosecutors give you immunity. Aria looked at the document, at Isabel's perfectly manicured hand holding it, at the trap disguised as salvation. Why would you help me? You hate me. I don't hate you. I pity you. You fell in love with a monster and now you're paying the price. Isabel's voice carried false sympathy. I was you once, engaged to Lucien, believing he could change, thinking love would save him. Then I learned the truth. He's incapable of real emotion, incapable of caring about anyone except himself. He used you the same way he used me, and now he'll let you go to prison to protect himself. That's not true. Aria's voice shook, genuine emotion mixing with performance. He loves me. Does he? Has he said those words, or has he just let you believe it because believing keeps you compliant? Isabel set down the document. I know him better than you ever will. I spent 2 years studying every angle of his personality, learning what makes him tick, understanding how he weaponizes attachment while feeling nothing himself. Lucien's hand tightened on Aria's. She could feel his control fraying. You're lying, Aria said. You're trying to manipulate me the same way you tried to manipulate him. Am I? Isabel's smile turned cold. Then let me tell you exactly what I did. How I built this case over 6 months. How I coordinated with federal prosecutors to manufacture evidence that would look real enough to convict. How I paid witnesses to lie. How I fabricated documents that trace Lucien's money through channels that make him look guilty, even when the transactions were legitimate. Aria's breath caught. The confession was happening. Isabel was actually admitting to everything. You fabricated evidence? Aria let her voice climb. You framed him. I created a narrative based on truth. Lucien is guilty of dozens of crimes, just not the specific ones I'm having him prosecuted for. Isabel leaned back. But the beauty is, it doesn't matter. Real crimes, fabricated evidence. Federal juries can't tell the difference. They see a pattern of behavior. They hear testimony from credible witnesses. They look at financial records that show clear money laundering, and they convict every time. How did you coordinate with prosecutors? They're supposed to be independent. Please. Catherine Walsh has political ambitions. Taking down Lucien Moretti makes her a hero, a corruption fighter, someone who brings down untouchable criminals. I gave her the case that will make her career. In exchange, she kept me informed about grand jury proceedings, gave me access to evidence, let me shape the narrative. Isabel's smile was triumphant. We've been working together for 8 months, building this case piece by piece, making sure nothing gets traced back to me. Lucien spoke for the first time since they'd sat down. You're admitting to conspiracy, to prosecutorial misconduct, to federal crimes that will put you in prison for decades. I'm admitting to being smarter than you, more careful, more patient. Isabel's eyes glittered. And I'm admitting it in a private room with no witnesses and no recording devices. Your word against mine. Who do you think federal investigators will believe? The convicted criminal facing life in prison, or the victim of his manipulation finally finding justice? They'll believe the recording of this conversation, Aria said quietly. Isabel froze. What? Aria pulled out her phone and set it on the table. The recording app was visible, active, capturing every word. Everything you just said. Every confession, every admission of fabricating evidence and coordinating with prosecutors. All recorded, all admissible. Aria's voice steadied. You're right about one thing. You're smart. But arrogance makes smart people stupid. You wanted to hurt us so badly you couldn't resist explaining exactly how you did it. Isabel's face went white, then red, then something beyond rage. "You bitch!" She lunged for the phone. Lucien caught her wrist. "Don't. You're already destroyed. Don't make it worse by adding assault to your charges." Isabel yanked free. "That recording is inadmissible. You obtained it through deception. No court will accept it." "Maybe not in a criminal trial, but it's perfectly fine for the disciplinary board investigating Catherine Walsh. For the media who'll report on federal prosecutor corruption. For your family who'll see exactly what you've become." Victoria Moretti stepped into the dining room from where she'd been listening outside. "Hello, Isabel. Long time since we've spoken face to face." Isabel's composure cracked completely. "You can't prove anything. That recording is backed up in 3 separate locations, along with documentation of your embezzlement, your conspiracy to commit murder 3 years ago, your fraud, every crime you thought you'd hidden." Victoria's smile was ice. "You made one critical mistake. You assumed we'd fight you the way Lucien fought everyone else, with violence and intimidation. But I taught my son that sometimes the best weapon is patience. And I've been patiently collecting evidence against you since the day you betrayed my family." Isabel looked between them, cornered, desperate, exactly how she'd wanted them to feel. "What do you want?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Your complete confession, on video, admitting to everything. The fabricated evidence, the coordination with Walsh, the attempts to poison Lucien, all of it." Victoria pulled out a camera. "You do that, and I'll make sure you serve your prison time in minimum security instead of somewhere that will actually destroy you. Refuse. And I release everything we have to every media outlet in the country. Your family's reputation gets destroyed. Your father's business interests collapse. Everyone you've ever known learns exactly what you are." "That's blackmail." "No, that's negotiation. I learned from the best." Victoria glanced at Lucien. "Well, what's it going to be?" Isabel stared at the camera, at the recording phone, at Aria and Lucien sitting together, united against her. Then she started laughing, harsh, broken, the sound of someone realizing they'd lost everything. "You really love him." Isabel looked at Aria. "You're actually willing to fight this hard for a man who kills people for a living." "Yes." "Why? What does he have that's worth destroying yourself over?" Aria thought about the past 3 months. About contracts and galas and helicopter rides, about Lucien's hand on her back and his kiss in the hospital, about choosing each other even when survival meant running away. He has the capacity to change, to be better, to learn how to love even when everything in his past tells him it's weakness. Aria met Isabel's eyes. "You never gave him that chance. You used him, betrayed him, proved every fear he ever had about emotional attachment. I'm giving him something different, something you couldn't." "What?" "A reason to be human again." Isabel's laugh died. She looked at Lucien. "Is she right? Did you actually learn to feel something?" Lucien's hand tightened on Aria's. "Yes." "Then I really did lose." Isabel's shoulders slumped. "Fine. I'll confess. On video. Everything. But I want immunity for my testimony against Walsh. She deserves to go down for this as much as I do." "Done." Victoria positioned the camera. "Start talking." For the next hour, Isabel Marchand destroyed herself on video, admitted to fabricating evidence, to coordinating with federal prosecutors, to paying witnesses, to poisoning Lucien, to embezzling from her family's foundation. Every crime, every lie, every moment of manipulation recorded in high definition. When she finished, Victoria turned off the camera. "You're done here. My lawyers will contact you about immunity agreements. Don't leave the city. Don't contact Walsh. Don't do anything except wait for federal investigators to decide whether your cooperation is worth protecting." Victoria's voice was ice. "And Isabel, if you ever come near my family again, immunity won't save you. I'll destroy you myself, slowly, painfully, in ways that make federal prison look merciful." Isabel left without responding. The moment she was gone, Aria collapsed against Lucien. All the adrenaline, all the fear, all the desperate performance finally catching up with her. "Is it over?" Her voice shook. "Is it really over?" "Not yet. Walsh will fight the prosecutorial misconduct allegations. The FBI will investigate. Isabel's confession needs to be verified and corroborated." Victoria packed up the recording equipment. "But yes, the war is over. Now comes the cleanup. Lucien pulled Aria closer. You were incredible. The way you drew her out. Made her confess. I've never seen anyone manipulate Isabel that effectively. I learned from watching you, and your mother. Aria looked up at him. Is your lawyer confident this will work?
Martin thinks we have enough to force prosecutors to drop charges. Isabel's confession proves the case was built on fabricated evidence. Walsh's involvement makes everything inadmissible. Without that, they don't have enough legitimate evidence to convict. So you're free. We're free. Lucien cupped her face. Both of us. No federal charges, no prison, no more running. Aria kissed him. This time it tasted like victory and exhaustion and the possibility of actually building a future. Victoria cleared her throat. Touching, but we still have work to do. Martin needs to file motions immediately. Prosecutors need to be notified. Media needs to be managed. She looked at Aria. Your mother needs to be told what's happening before she hears it on the news. Aria's stomach clenched. I haven't talked to her in 2 days. She's probably terrified. Then go, both of you. Visit her. Tell her you're safe. Let her see that you survived this. Victoria's expression softened fractionally. Family matters, even when everything else is falling apart. Especially then. Caroline Bennett looked smaller in her hospital bed than Aria remembered. Thinner, more fragile. But her eyes were sharp when Aria and Lucien walked into her room. There's my daughter, the one who's been all over the news looking like she's fighting World War III. Caroline's voice was hoarse but steady. And you must be the husband who's caused all this chaos. Lucien stepped forward. Mrs. Bennett, I'm Lucien Moretti. I know this isn't the introduction we should have had, but I want you to know that I love your daughter, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth the trouble she went through to protect me. Caroline studied him with the kind of intensity only mothers possess. You better, because if you hurt her, federal prison will be the least of your worries. I'm dying, but I'm not dead yet, and I can still make your life miserable. Despite everything, Lucien smiled. I believe you. Good. Now someone tell me what the hell has been happening, because the news makes it sound like my daughter married a crime boss and is about to go to prison for it. Aria sat beside her mother's bed and explained everything. The contract, the FBI investigation, Isabel's confession, the evidence that would clear them both. Caroline listened without interrupting, her hand tight around Aria's. When Aria finished, Caroline was quiet for a long moment. You really love him, she said finally. Yes. Enough to risk everything. Yes. Caroline looked at Lucien. And you? Do you love my daughter, or is she just another asset in your empire? Lucien met her eyes without flinching. 6 months ago, I would have said love was weakness. That emotional attachment gets people killed. That caring about anyone makes you vulnerable in ways enemies can exploit. I built my entire life around avoiding exactly what I feel when I look at your daughter. That's not an answer. I love her. The words came out raw, honest. I love her in ways I didn't think I was capable of feeling, in ways that terrify me, in ways that make me want to be better than everything my past has made me. Caroline's eyes filled. Then you have my blessing, for whatever that's worth. It's worth everything, Aria whispered. They spent the next hour talking about treatment plans and medical updates and all the normal things families discussed when death wasn't an immediate threat anymore. Caroline's new doctors were cautiously optimistic. The experimental treatments were working. She had months, maybe years if they continued responding. Time that had been purchased with Lucien, dirty money, and Aria's desperate contract. Time that now felt like the most valuable gift anyone had ever given. When visiting hours ended, Aria kissed her mother goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow, Caroline said. Both of you. I want to get to know the man my daughter went to war for. I'll be here, Lucien promised. Outside the hospital, Manhattan glittered with evening lights. The city that had swallowed them both and spit them out changed. What happens now? Aria asked. Now we wait. Martin files the motions. Federal prosecutors review Isabel's confession. Walsh gets investigated for misconduct. The case collapses or it doesn't. Lucien pulled her close. But either way, we face it together. No more contracts? No more contracts. Just choices. Every day, to choose each other even when it's hard. Aria looked up at him. I choose you. I choose you too.
Lucien kissed her forehead. And tomorrow, assuming we're not arrested, I'm taking you somewhere. Where? The same hotel where we met, where this all started. I want to ask you something properly this time. Aria's heart jumped. Lucien, don't say anything yet. Let me do this right, the way you deserve. His eyes held something she'd never seen before. Hope. The way we deserve.
The FBI dropped all charges 3 days later. Isabel's confession proved prosecutorial misconduct. Walsh was suspended pending investigation. The witnesses who'd testified against Lucien recanted their statements or disappeared into federal protection. Everything collapsed exactly as Victoria had predicted. Lucien was free. Aria was free. And the contract that had started everything was officially dissolved by mutual agreement between lawyers who charged more per hour than Aria used to make in a week. They were no longer legally married, which made what happened next actually mean something. Lucien took her to the Plaza Hotel on a Thursday evening when the city glowed with possibility. Not to the ballroom where they'd met, to the rooftop, private, exclusive, overlooking Manhattan like they owned it. Candles everywhere, soft music. The kind of romance Aria had thought only existed in movies. This is where I should have brought you the first time, Lucien said. If I'd been brave enough to ask properly instead of manipulating you into a contract. I wouldn't have said yes. I didn't know you. And now I know exactly who you are. The good and the terrible. The violence and the capacity for change. The man who killed his brother and the man who learned to love again despite being terrified of it. Lucien took her hand. Then he dropped to one knee. Aria's breath stopped. Aria Bennett, 3 months ago, I bought you with a contract designed to protect my empire. I paid for your compliance, and your presence, and your silence. I treated you like a transaction because that's all I knew how to do. He pulled out a ring. Not the $2 million monstrosity from before. Something simpler, more beautiful. A diamond that caught light and turned it into promises. But you taught me something I thought was impossible. You taught me that love isn't weakness, that choosing someone isn't vulnerability, that being human doesn't make you a target, it makes you whole. Tears burned behind Aria's eyes. Our first arrangement was built on fear and desperation. This one has no contracts, no conditions, no clauses about emotional attachment, just a promise to choose each other every day, even when it's hard, even when the world tries to tear us apart. Even when being together means fighting wars we didn't start. Lucien's voice cracked. Marry me. For real this time. Not because you need me or because I'm paying you, but because somehow, against every rule I ever made, I need you. And I love you. And I want to spend whatever time we have left proving that monsters can learn to be human again if someone gives them a reason. Aria looked at him, the feared Mafia boss on his knees in candlelight, offering her a choice instead of a contract. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. For real this time. Lucien slid the ring onto her finger. Then he stood and kissed her like a man who'd finally found something worth more than survival. The city spread below them. Millions of people living their lives. Millions of stories. Millions of contracts and choices and desperate attempts to build meaning from chaos. And somewhere among them, a waitress from Brooklyn and the king of Blackwater chose love over fear. Chose each other over safety. Chose to believe that broken people could heal if someone loved them hard enough to stay through the darkest parts. 6 months later, they married for real in a small ceremony that had nothing to do with empires or arrangements. Just family. Caroline, healthy enough to attend. Victoria, looking almost pleased. Elena and a handful of people who'd become family through loyalty instead of blood. No contracts were signed, no clauses about emotional attachment, just vows. Simple, honest. Promises to choose each other every day even when it was hard. After the ceremony, Lucien handed Aria a piece of paper. She unfolded it. A cocktail napkin from the Plaza Hotel. Written in Lucien's harsh handwriting. The emotional attachment clause shall be permanently and joyfully broken for the rest of our lives. Below it, 2 signatures, his and hers. Our new contract, Lucien said quietly. The only one that matters. Aria smiled through tears. I accept the terms. Good. Because you're stuck with me now. For better or worse. Probably mostly worse given my family and criminal empire. I can live with worse, as long as it's our worse. Together. They signed the napkin beside the fountain where their story had begun, where a desperate woman and a broken man had made a deal that should have been purely transactional. But love didn't follow contracts. Love didn't care about rules or clauses or carefully maintained emotional distance. Love just existed, messy, complicated, worth every moment of fear and federal investigation and war against people who wanted to destroy them. Caroline lived another 3 years, long enough to meet her granddaughter, long enough to see Aria and Lucien build something real from the ashes of their contract marriage. Victoria started a foundation in Marco's name, helping people trapped in cycles of violence find ways out. Her way of acknowledging that maybe love wasn't weakness, maybe it was the only thing worth fighting for. Lucien slowly transitioned his business interests from criminal enterprises to legitimate operations. It took years, required patience and sacrifice, and giving up power he'd spent decades building. But every time he looked at Aria and their daughter, the choice became easier. Some battles were worth losing if winning them cost your soul, and Aria finally understood what her mother had tried to tell her that night on the phone. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone willing to be imperfect together, someone willing to fight through the darkness, someone willing to choose you every day even when survival meant running away. The king of Blackwater had built his empire on fear, but he'd found his kingdom in the arms of a woman brave enough to love him anyway. And together, they'd proven that even the most carefully constructed walls could be broken. By honesty, by loyalty, by the stubborn refusal to let fear win. The contract that started it all sat framed in their home, a reminder of where they'd begun, of the desperate choices that had brought them together, of the journey from transaction to transformation. Below it, the cocktail napkin. Their real contract, the one that mattered. The emotional attachment clause shall be permanently and joyfully broken for the rest of our lives. They'd kept that promise. Through federal investigations and media storms, through rebuilding empires and learning to trust, through becoming parents and partners and people who'd survived the worst and chosen to build something better. Not perfect, never perfect, but theirs. Completely, irrevocably, theirs. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.